Yes, good evening, Spurs faithful, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave and Jack, and happy Wednesday evening to you all. It's absolutely fantastic weather out there, so hopefully you've all avoided work and been out there enjoying yourself. But we are, of course, here tonight because tonight is the clash of two European champions. Europa League winners Tottenham take on Champions League winners PSG in the UEFA Super Cup final. Now, the two clubs have had very different seasons, but both ended in a European triumph. So I just want a quick question off the boys before we delve into deeper topics. How confident are you feeling tonight? Nervous energy, quiet optimism, or feeling the Bayern, a Bayern Munich sort of type night? We'll start with you, Billy T. Welcome, my man. It's great to have you on.
Pleasure to be on, guys. And you know what? As soon as you said two European champions, that got my heart going again. I forgot. It hasn't really still sunk in from last season, but yeah. Now, as soon as you call us European champions again, I'm in for it. I think that gave me a bit of confidence. So, you know, you got to dream about these matches, right? You got to go into a dream. So I'm going to go nervously confident.
Nervously confident. Look, do you know what? I was on the phone to my old lad just before he came on, and he's feeling quite confident tonight for some reason. He feels like we can shit house a win. So, you know, that's 2 from 2. Jack, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling all right. The pot of coffee is nice and hot. Hopefully have a post-celebratory beer, or we'll just keep it for another Tuesday or Wednesday evening, you know, where we get to celebrate these nights. But we get to play on Tuesday and Wednesday night at 8 o'clock before Arsenal or the rest of the teams do, Dave. So that feels good. And it's a good way to get the season kicked off, you know, against a proper opponent, and maybe an opportunity for Thomas Frank to, in a way, you know, get kicked off in a real turbo boost of some kind, you know, if he were to pick up, in my opinion, what would be a kind of a momentous, if not, you know, kind of a miracle tonight if he were to get a result. So real opportunity for him, and Romero is captain, which we'll talk about as well. So in a way, some good stuff to chat about. Looking forward to it. Back on Wednesday nights.
No, look, back in European football, that's the main thing, especially after the sort of season we had for the large parts of last season. At least we salvaged European football out of it. Also, I think tonight will be a good test in terms of, and we'll speak about this later on as well, in terms of how Tottenham under Thomas Frank are going to handle midweek football and Premier League football on the weekend. It was a huge problem last season. So that is a discussion that we're going to have, and we're going to see. Now, I'm not sure if these numbers are being fudged, but these numbers here on this stream is just going up every second. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyway, we'll let everybody know everything they need to know. Of course, we are playing at the Stadio Friuli in Udine, Italy. Kickoff is 8 p.m. tonight. Referee is João Pinheiro, so make sure you write that name down if there's any dodgy calls, along with Thiago Martins in this VAR room. If you want to watch the game in the UK and Ireland, it is on TNT Sports 1. In the USA, it's on Paramount Plus, and in Australia, it is on Stan Sport. And then also the injury news, Tottenham are missing Dragusin with the ACL. Kulusevski is out as well. Madison out with an ACL. Now, I know Solanke and Udogie did travel. How fit are they? Are they going to start? I suppose that's a discussion we'll have to have. And then Donnarumma was left out of the PSG squad, and João Neves is suspended. So that's everything all of you guys need to know. But look, guys, let's crack into it. I mean, under Daniel Levy, Billy T, Spurs have made huge strides commercially, but not enough where it really matters to fans, which is the trophy cabinet. After winning the Europa League in May, how crucial is it that Tottenham build on that momentum by lifting the Super Cup today and prove that this really is a start of a new era at Tottenham, maybe a trophy-winning era?
Oh, mate, I think it would be absolutely huge. And I'm not sort of one of the, I've seen a couple people, maybe a bit of, self-protection people saying that this is just a friendly or whatever. I don't buy into that, man. I think this is an absolutely massive trophy. If you look at some of the past winners over the last few years, you've got like Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Bayern Munich. Obviously, you have to be a European champion to even be in this opportunity in the first place, man. I think this is an absolutely huge night for us. I think it's unfortunate that obviously with the final comes of the fact that you're facing the Champions League winner and PSG, who are well worthy Champions League winners as well. Like, they're an absolutely insanely good team. But this is the kind of night you dream of as a fan, man. You want to be in these kind of competitions. You want to be in a Super Cup. And for Tottenham to win a Super Cup would be absolutely massive. It would be a big step forward for us, I think, and sort of put us among those teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona that win this competition regularly.
No, 100%. And look, it is Tottenham's first Super Cup. It's worth mentioning. I believe it's PSG's as well. But at the end of the day, it's a trophy that's on offer. One that you'd look back in years to come. You know, when I get older, say at my old lad's age, I can look back and say, do you know what a night that was? Because my old lad has plenty of them memories, you know, in his locker. Dave, this was some night. Dave, that was some night. I've had very few of them nights. So tonight could be another one of them nights. And look, knowing how good the Europa League felt, I mean, the Super Cup final will feel just as good, in my opinion. It's another European trophy. And at the end of the day, if we beat PSG, I would argue, maybe going a bit too far, but probably signals Tottenham as the best team in Europe at that point, because I presume that's the idea of this competition, right? Let the two.
I'll definitely be claiming that for the rest of the season if we win tonight.
I'll definitely be claiming it anyway, especially if we go on a barren run in the Premier League. I'll just hold on to it. I'll cradle it at night time. But Jack, how big a game is this for Thomas Frank? It is his first competitive match in charge for Tottenham. Look, I don't think a lot of people blame him for our struggles going forward in pre-season. But there is a lot of pressure on him, in my opinion, to get a result against PSG tonight.
I think there is a bit of pressure on him in the sense that he could win a lot from this if he were to pick up a result. I think there would be absolute vibes from it. I think a lot of people who are perhaps, on the fence about Thomas Frank certainly would maybe get on the train as quickly as they can, or, they might not go into the season as nervous. There's also, of course, the drama of the fact that he is coming off of the back of a manager who did win us that trophy. And he's kind of, as I've said to you many a times, the weird thing with Thomas Frank is that he is kind of then put under pressure just by the fact that Ange Postecoglou won the trophy, and he's now come in because apparently Daniel Levy thinks that Thomas Frank should be doing actually a lot better than even what Ange Postecoglou has done. So in a way, by Frank winning this trophy is a good signal for the decision that was made over the summer, and it's also a good signal for what could be to come this season under Thomas Frank. He's made no illusions of it. I don't think he's, shied away from some of the questions about that this is a team that has won something very recently, and he hopes to build off of that. And here's a great opportunity. I also really like that he has said from the get-go that they have been preparing for this game for a while now, and that they see this as an opportunity to win a trophy, not as he's completely disregarded it as like a preseason friendly or anything like that. So I kind of appreciate his attitude going into this. So I think it's a huge opportunity really for him, Dave, as a manager, to get that buy-in from everyone, the players, including fans as well.
I think someone who is a bit more skeptical around the appointment like me, I think it'll buy huge buy-in from someone like me, because when we appointed Thomas Frank, my big concern was, like, if we were going to sack Ange, I was like, okay, but then let's bring in a manager of gravitas. Let's use that name to then push on and bring in a certain caliber name of signings that we were all maybe expecting, or that we know that we need in this squad, and really kick on. And I feel like by bringing in Thomas Frank, it sort of killed the transfer window in terms of fans' eyes for a couple of months. It's okay, Thomas Frank is going to develop this guy, that guy, and everything else. I think over the course of pre-season, people have probably seen sometimes a manager can't polish a third. At the end of the day, sometimes shit is just shit. You can't turn it into gold. And I think people have realised that, and now we are screaming for transfers. But I think if Thomas Frank can go in and put a solid defensive performance in there tonight, and maybe we can nick a goal or two on the counter or from a set piece, he will buy a huge buy-in from someone like me. Because my big thing about bringing him in from Brentford was he hadn't won anything. Yeah, he'd done a good job at Brentford, but we said Ange couldn't handle Europe in the Premier League, and then we bring in a guy that has never proven that he can handle a European campaign alongside the Premier League, and he's never won anything, despite what people said about Ange, Jose, Conte. They won everywhere they've been. And my big fear with Thomas Frank is, how's he going to get us to them moments when he's never been there? There's only been a certain amount of expectation on Brentford. At Tottenham, it's different. If he wins tonight, that'll completely change my opinion, and I'll completely flip it and go, do you know what? This guy's got something. So I think it's a very big night for Thomas Frank in terms of someone like me.
Just to add to that, I think there are a lot of people in your boat, Dave, and a lot of you guys are waiting to join the Thomas the Frank engine freight train, and you're waiting to become a Francophile, if you will. And the fact that he's gone into this game without Kulusevski, without Madison, no Gibbs White has been brought through the door. There's no Eze or Savino as of yet at the minute. He's going into this game with, again, a pretty threadbare team in terms of qualities, essentially inheriting a very similar team to what Ange Postecoglou had, ending off the season pretty much, except for Joao Plina and Mohamed Kudus, but lost Sonny, of course, the captain of before. So I just think if he were to pull this off tonight, in my opinion, would be, miracle might be a strong word, but I do think we are heavily, being lined up as the underdogs in this game. I don't think there's been a European Super Cup like this one where,
Tottenham are
probably been more
underdogs.
evenly matched ones, whereas this one is probably very much tilted towards PSG. And if you were to pick up a result with all those players missing, and with, in my opinion, the very few signings that have been made to really back him, I think that would get a lot of people like you, which I think there are a lot of people like you out there, to get on that Francophile train.
Well, I just think it demonstrates he can sort of do what he was brought in to do. You look at his results against the big teams in the Premier League when he was Brentford manager. You know, he routinely got results against them. They were very hard to play against. And if he can come in and produce tonight and get over the line, then that shows to me that, you know, he's on track for what they brought him in to do. Whereas at Brentford as well, I think, and this is another skepticism I had around Frank, is their scouting model is designed to go and find undervalued players in the market, bring them in. And with all the data and analysis, they feel like regardless of what manager's in charge, that these players will develop to this level, that they can sell on for massive profit. That's the way their scouting department is designed. It's very, very, very similar to Brighton's. So I also have the question mark, how much of it is actually down to Thomas Frank and how good he is as a manager and a coach and all that sort of stuff, and how much of it is actually down to this scouting model that seems to work for Brentford and Brighton. It's kept them in the Premier League, you know, since they've arrived, and it's helped them get big results as well. So I have my skepticism around that, but I think, again, another win tonight, I think it will also make people like me look at Thomas Frank and go, do you know what? He is the coach that everybody hyped him up to be when we signed him. Billy T, you're nodding your head. You want to come in on this?
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I had a similar kind of skepticism to you. I've been really impressed with him since he come in, to be honest. I think he talks really well. He's like I think he's just like a really sensible appointment. He's kind of like the polar opposite to Ange, and I really bought into Ange because I like the excitement of knowing that you could kind of go into any game and, you know, you're going to play them, you're going to attack every single game, and that was obviously a bit suicidal, but that's kind of like a bit like my personality, really. I like that kind of going into every game knowing that. I think we're going to see the polar opposite of that with Thomas Frank. What I was more worried about with Thomas Frank was what the board would do in reaction to it, because I feel like with Ange, he's a very big personality, he's very big, you know, all about the philosophy, and he's probably going to go out and demand a few massive signings this summer and put the board onto that. I think Thomas Frank is very much designed to be like a coach the players, exactly like you said. Work with what you've got, maybe have a couple of signings, a couple of youth players here and there. I think that's been contradicted slightly with the players that we've linked with in the last couple of days, but until they get over the line, then I'll still be skeptical about the fact that I think like the board have maybe hired Thomas Frank because he's really good at working with what he's got. Yeah. And that worries me slightly with us, because I think, you know, as I've said multiple times, I'm really worried about the ambition of our board and the sort of the way that they back managers or lack thereof. Yeah. So that was my big worry going in with Thomas Frank. Having said that, if we get those two players over the line, then I'll be absolutely buzzing. That'd be absolutely massive.
I think if we can get Eze and Savino over the line, because when I look at it, I think, look, Thomas Frank done exactly what I thought he was going to do. You know, if anyone watches my video back when we first hired him, you know, I sort of said, I'm expecting him to come in here and bring about defensive structure very quickly, implement the set pieces, you know, very, very quickly. But my biggest concern was, what's he going to do with this squad in terms of getting us to go forward? Because at the end of the day, you've got to score goals to go and win games. It's the hardest thing to do in football. So that was one of my biggest concerns. And sort of, I'm not going to lie, over the preseason, that sort of panned out that way. But I can't blame him. Look, Brennan Johnson is just a back post merchant. That's all he is. He's not good. He can't do 99% of the game. He can't get involved in the build-up play. He can't take players down. He can't put inconsistent, you know, chances for the striker to get on the end of and stuff like that. There's so much lacking to his game. And I think the massive hope was that someone like Frank can come in and develop Johnson and really kick him on. But at the end of the day, kid's 23, 24. If you don't already have that in your locker, I think going forward, you're not really going to add that. And I just think we are really lacking in the forward areas. I think Ange Postecoglou, if we didn't sell Harry Kane from under his nose, he'd probably still be in the job today, to be honest with you. Like, we are severely lacking going forward. There's no build-up play. There's no good link-up play. We're relying on a set piece or a penalty or a scrappy goal or a moment of brilliance, but there's no sustained pressure, and it really let Ange Postecoglou down, and it's going to be the same for Thomas Frank. I think we have to try and get Eze and Savino over the line. We have to get both. Even one, if we were to do one, I probably would prefer Eze. I think he's that much of a game changer for Tottenham. But I think if we have serious ambitions and we live up to Daniel's words that he wants to win the Premier League and the Champions League, then you go and show that ambition and you deliver the both of them and you get fans excited. Because for me, it doesn't matter what Thomas Frank does defensively. If you don't score goals at this level, you are bang in trouble, big trouble. Yeah. So we really need to get these players over the line. But what I will say is, I was actually surprised by Frank's mentality, to be honest with you. That pre-season friendly against Arsenal, I love his mentality, the way he said he wants to come out. It's a North London derby. He wants to win it. Straight away, he sort of understands the Tottenham fan base. He knows if he comes out and goes, oh, it's only pre-season friendly, there will be an element that will already start to turn on him a little. It's just the way we are. It's natural in the Tottenham fan base. Also, ahead of today's game, some people may be trying to dismiss it off as a pre-season friendly, and he could have easily done that, knowing Tottenham's mentality, and tried to take the pressure off the situation altogether. here. But he didn't. He says, no, we want to go out. We want to win. We want to put the trophy in the cabinet. So I really do like Thomas Frank's mentality. That is one thing that has actually surprised me about him.
That was one of my biggest things going into it as well, because I was, make no mistake, I've got an Ange tattoo, man. I'm a big fan of Ange. But one of our
Did you show me? Where is it?
I can't show you because it's on a bit of a dodgy place.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on my thigh, but there you go. I do have an Ange tattoo. But
nice.
The worst thing about Ange is we were absolutely horrific in the derbies, man. We have a terrible record against Arsenal, terrible record against Chelsea. I think we won one game against West Ham.
Yeah.
Thomas Frank in those games against Brentford. Brentford are always in those games, and they always take it to the big teams. And we kind of saw that in the pre-season friendly as well against Arsenal. That's the kind of performance which we never really gave against Arsenal under Ange. So I'm hoping that Thomas Frank actually does have a bit of a secret ingredient in these big, massive games, because Brentford rarely get smacked by teams like they don't. They're always in the game when there's Thomas Frank, and they always turn up and they always compete. So that's what I'm hoping that Thomas Frank can bring for us.
I really hope so. But again, I think it really does depend on the forward line. Like, you know, at Brentford, they could soak up pressure. That's what he's all about. Sort of keep it tight, soak up the pressure, don't give away too many chances. But they had him Wem on the attack, Tony in years gone by. You know, working with Brendan Johnson, Richarlison right now, it's a complete different level altogether. And at the end of the day, if you can't hold up the ball's going to keep coming back, and eventually you're going to concede goals. It happened under Jose, and it happened under Conte at periods, and that's what led to them being sacked. So the warning signs are there. If you're not lethal on the counter, this style of football will get very, very fans will get very annoyed with it very, very quickly. So the board really need to help this guy. But look, that's most of the managers' problems at Tottenham. I always say we don't hire bad managers. We just have bad practices in place to help these guys. Imagine we say to guys, oh, whatever you've done at every other club and the way you've won there, come here. And by the way, we want to change all your processes. It's absolutely insanity. Absolutely insanity. Anyway, I do want to take this moment out before we maybe get in and talk about why the boys maybe think we can beat PSG. And then we'll also talk about club captain Christian Romero. I know there's some people out there, aka Sean Maddox, is going to be deeply upset by this. However, I'm absolutely buzzing. I think it's great to get back to that old school leader, that guy that's just an assassinator out on the pitch. It's absolutely brilliant. But guys, there is over 1,850 people watching. I'm aware the majority of this is over on Twitter, thanks to Billy T. So, guys, if you do like and you are enjoying the content, please come over onto the YouTube channel, smash the like button and smash the subscribe button. If you are enjoying it, big up Moondog. He says, we are winning 2-1 tonight. Come on, you Spurs. Do you know what? Yesterday it was all misery and doom and gloom. No one believed we could win. And I just love how people can just change when they wake up in the bed in the morning, the feel of the game, the excitement. And all of a sudden, where people had no hope, all of a sudden they're sitting there today plotting ways that we can win. But I can guarantee you, none of you, when you were plotting your way to win today, it was about free, fast-flowing football, devastating, scoring from open play. I guarantee it was about shithousing a set piece or a penalty or something like that. Big up Alan Leslie as well, member for 14 months. Hopefully chances being created tonight. Look, chances are at a premium at Tottenham, to be honest with you. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Levy done it by design so he can start doing a lottery on it, you know, selling numbers on what minutes we're going to create chances and stuff like that. But big up, Alan Leslie. Good to see you in the house, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well and up for today's game. And then we've got Q7 in the house, member for 11 months. Hello, lads. Am I wrong for obviously wanting us to win? However, if we lose, hoping for drumming in the hope that it will add pressure to them signings. Do you know what, Q7? Look, obviously we're all hoping for a win tonight. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be embarrassed on this European stage. Trust me, I know some people may feel like that now to put pressure on the board. But reality is we finished 17th last season. And if that isn't enough pressure on the board to go and deliver the signings and bring them in here a lot earlier than what they could have, then honestly, I don't think a drubbing to PSG will change that, to be quite frank. At the end of the day, we know Daniel Levy, he's got a certain budget that he wants to operate in, and he ain't going to break it. It doesn't matter if we get slapped up 9-0 today. It is not going to alter his thinking or his budget. So, to be honest with you, I'm just hoping for a win. The fan pressure can come on the weekend when the protest is organised. That's where fans can get down and make their voices heard. That's where you can put the pressure on the board. But what we don't want is get slapped up tonight, because I'm telling you now, it is not going to change their thinking upstairs. Good evening, Soren. Welcome into the stream, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Good to see you in the building. Look, we were slapped up 4-0 by Bayern Munich, Soren. We couldn't really get out of our own half all game. Do you think this was a wake-up call that we needed, or could tonight follow the same pattern? What gives you hope that maybe we can compete tonight against a team like PSG? Because I know you think we're going to win anyway. You always do.
I think the Bayern game was incidental. Look, we're playing one of the best teams in Europe, and it's a pre-season. And as much as we want to win it, the only game that probably actually meant a lot to us was spanking them lot from down the road. But tonight, look, I honestly don't know what to expect tonight, because I look at PSG and look, let's not pretend they are a fantastic team. They have some absolutely stunning world-class players, and on their day they can beat anybody. But we saw what Chelsea did to them, and look, I know we're not Chelsea. I know we haven't got the same team, but what's to say that they can't take on that intensity if we go at them? And absolutely press them. What's to say we can't nick a goal or two? What's to say we can't win it? I mean, everybody's expecting us to lose 4-5-0, whatever the score's going to be, but I don't think we are. I think it'll be fairly tight. I think we're a different proposition now. We've got Paulinho in, and he's had a few days more just to understand what we want from him in our team. We've probably got us almost as strong a back four as we're going to have. I mean, I think I'd rather see Spence hopefully playing left back and Porro right back anyways, because it's more defensive. So as much as I think it's not going to be an easy game tonight, I think we could sneak it, and I think we could get battered. It could go any way. It really could. And look, it's the first game. None of the fans are really expecting a win. So just think how great a win could be. It almost goes back to that Europa final when I was telling everybody we're going to win it, we're going to win it, we're going to win it. Nobody thought we were. It was so Spursy to go and win it. We go and win it. We sack our most winning manager for 40 odd years, in a sense. We sack him. We bring in Thomas Frank. How Spursy is it going to be for us to go and win tonight? It's absolutely written in the stars. So, look, I might be talking waffle, but I think we'll be lifting a cup tonight. I really do. And look, if I get shot down, I get shot down. But
hey, you've read the script before, Soren. You've read it before.
Yeah, it's a night to dream. And look, I mean,
that's what you have to do as a Spurs fan. Well, you already know you're going in at a disadvantage in terms of quality on the pitch, but it's a final. Anything can happen. And at the end of the day, I was brought up on dreaming, being the underdog and rolling over the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people wrote us off because, we have the easiest route to the final in the Europa Cup final. Well, we might have had the easier route and Man United might have had the harder route, but they still couldn't beat us. Now, PSG is a totally different opposition to Man United. I know it is. And, but what's the point in supporting a club if you can't dream about winning another cup? And I think somebody, I can't remember who it was, but in one of the chats, somebody summed it up. If we win tonight, it's absolutely fantastic. It's an amazing feat. If we lose tonight, it was a friendly. Who cares?
Some people look at it as a win-win, maybe.
Yeah, so it's a win-win situation. But look, if you can't believe, if you can't get up for the Super Cup or whatever it's called, that's how. If you can't get up for a game against PSG, doesn't matter what it is, then this is to me where the season starts now. Bayern Munich was a friendly. Look what we did under Ange Postecoglou. We lost, and then we went and won a final after losing to Bayern. Might have taken a full season. So maybe we've just lost to Bayern again, and we're going to win the cup tonight. Who knows? History's rewriting itself.
Look, no one gave Palace a chance against Liverpool at the weekend. They turned them over, Yeah. There's every possibility we could turn PSG over tonight. It's a big if, but there is. And look, Soren is right. You got to get up for cup finals. To be honest with you, I think cup finals should be a cure for erectile dysfunction. I woke up on a hard-on this morning. I absolutely love days like this. They've been few and far in between. And at the end of the day, this is what I get into supporting Tottenham for. The nights that my dad promised me would come my way. And these are these nights. So let's go. I'm absolutely pumped for tonight. But guys, I do want to move the conversation on to the club's new captain. The latest one to lead the team out, the latest one to become a legend at the club, and that is QE Romero. Thomas Frank said he was very honoured and very happy about it. It's a big thing and should should be to lead this wonderful club out on the pitch, not just for this Super Cup, but also throughout the season. I think he has all the right qualities. He leads from his behaviour on the pitch, driving the team forward in every way, and outside the pitch, he's always pushing the team. Very similar stuff that me and Jack have said about him in the last few years, despite people saying, you know, he's this, that, and the other. But I suppose we'll go to you first on this, Jack, and we'll get Billy T then straight in after, and Soren. But some fans have raised doubts about his loyalty to the badge and his occasional head loss moments in big games in years gone by. It's all been aimed at Romero. Just because he's named club captain, people don't start getting in the comments saying you weren't one of them, because I have all your names written down. So I want to know, guys, has Thomas Frank made the right decision, or is this a gamble that could backfire, just like Postecoglou's captaincy choice eventually did? Because at the end of the day, a manager sort of does live and die by who he picks as his captain, because a captain is supposed to be a representation of the manager in the dressing room and on the football pitch. So do you guys think he's made the right choice, or do you think it's one that could maybe backfire on him further down the line?
I have a lot to say on this, so I'll probably just try to keep it a bit briefer and then come back in later.
We're here to chat, Jack.
Well,
so if you've got a lot to say, get it out.
But because I liked your question towards the end there about Ange Postecoglou's decision about Sonny, which I think is a separate thing to a degree. I mean, welfare check, first of all, like you said, Dave, on all the Romero haters. There are plenty of them out there, so they probably are absolutely shaking in the boots at the minute, as you can tell.
They're all sitting there in Brazil jerseys. They're raging.
As you can tell by the wall behind me, I am an OG Romero fan. I bought his kit the moment that he signed for the club. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's a reincarnation of Sergio Ramos and kind of Pepe of the past, you know, the nasty, gnarly defenders, but a bit more like Sergio in that he is such a good technician on the ball, so, you know, good at playing out from the back. I think he's debatably probably our best passer out from the back, even almost better than Pedro Porro to some degree, the way he breaks the lines and the way he sort of gets moves started for us. But then we know he's just an absolute warrior. He doesn't really fear anyone. He could take on 100 Harry Maguires, and I feel like he would still come out as the winner, Christian Romero. I really love the guy. I think he is a winner. I think there is a real competitor in him. I also kind of liken him to some of the Spurs players of the past that have actually, you know, left maybe for bigger trophies, as well as debatably, of course, bigger clubs, you know, Luka Modric, Gareth Bale, and others. We know Harry Kane eventually did it. I just think Christian Romero was in a very similar boat to those guys when you kind of spoke about, you know, some people questioning his loyalty. I think he really wants to play at the absolute peak level, wants to be someone that's competing against the very best, wants to be playing in the top competitions, doesn't want to be embarrassed, doesn't want to feel like he's playing at a club that doesn't have ambition to win things. I think he feels very good after actually getting over the line in that Europa League final. But now, you know, that he's been maybe cleverly given this, you know, responsibility by Thomas Frank. Maybe he's feeling the love from the club, but also from this manager. And I think it was a very good move by Thomas Frank to give this to Romero. I wonder if Romero would, you know, if he wasn't given the captaincy, I think that would have been the sign that maybe he is actually going to be out the door, you know, the following summer. Whereas now I think it's absolutely probably not going to happen. So I just, that's kind of my opening statement on it. I really do feel like it was a very clever move by Thomas Frank in order to give him that buy-in, you know, that he is going to be the guy for the future here, because I think he's like Luka and like Gareth Bale, where if he didn't feel like the club was moving in the right direction, he would be out of here.
No, look, and in terms of mentality, you know, the guy's never lost a final, which shows top mentality. You know, for me, I think you need that as a club captain. You know, we've got a very weak mentality around the whole club in general. It's been like that my whole lifetime. I think someone like Romero, you know, can sort of bring that bit of steely mentality or that mentality on the big occasion. But Billy, I want to pick up where Jack maybe left off with that. Is it maybe an indication then that we're maybe expecting Romero contract extension to follow?
I hope so, mate, because he definitely deserves it. I think he should be paid, you know, in the region of £200,000 as one of the best defenders in the world a week. And I hope he renews, man, because he's an absolute winner, and you can't buy that kind of mentality that he has. Yeah. I think there are a couple of things which sum up for me. One was when in that Europa League final, when he moved the Tottenham players in front of the fans or whatever.
Yeah.
Just before the game, that was a real statement of intent. And he's such a different kind of captain to Son. And Son is like Mr. Vibes. He's like brings the whole team together. Romero is he's a kind of fighter, isn't he? And that kind of different kind of captain that we're going to see. And I just think he's an absolute winner. I think I think it's a really clever move from Thomas Frank. And if you remember, the day that Thomas Frank was announced was when Romero dropped his thank you to Ange. A very calculated move, I think. So I think it's been a massive turnaround for Frank to win him over straight away, really quickly. Because make no mistake, I think Frank was facing an uphill battle there to win Romero over.
Yeah.
Romero is obviously all in on Ange, and I think he's done it really, really smartly. And I think given someone like Romero, who's all about like loyalty, he's all about like values, he's all about like winning, the captaincy is going to be huge. I think it's definitely the right decision, and I can't wait to see him lead us out. And I would absolutely love some Romero trophy pictures tonight. That would go hard. I would absolutely love that, man.
What start would be for Thomas Frank and Romero in terms of manager and captain moving forward if they could both lift the trophy tonight? It'd be an absolute.
And as someone just said in the chat as well, he's never lost a final, this guy. So, and that includes a World Cup final. So.
Never lost a final, you know. His mentality is absolutely top. Look, for me, I really love the choice of Christian Romero. I think he's probably our best player in the Tottenham team to date. Not only does he do the dirty side of the game, but he's also very good on the ball as well. And I think you need that sort of guy in and around the dressing room. You know, that guy that just wants to win at all costs. It doesn't matter how you do it. You know, Romero's not one of them, oh, you have to win this way and this way is the right way to win. He just wants to win at all costs. And I think you need that sort of guy in and around the dressing room. And I would like to believe if there are players falling below his standards, which he's setting at the football club now moving forward, that he'd be very quick to sort of drag them in line or put them in line or intimidate them to get them in line, which I absolutely love that appointment. But Soren, I mean, how do you feel about the Christian Romero appointment as captain? Because people have questioned his loyalty to the club. You know, they were butthurt by that interview that he gave towards the end of last season. You know, I think it was in the Tottenham dressing room where he gave that interview, sort of working for Spain to a large degree.
Look, I'm going to quote one of our greatest ever managers. I told them and they laughed. I told them and they didn't believe me. Last week when we was on the panel with Jack, and that's a joke before anybody starts telling me about Ange. On the panel with Jack last week, was it? And we was talking about this subject. And I said then it would be Romero. And everybody's telling me he can't speak English. Yes, he can. And he's come out and done the English. Today. So, look, this is there isn't another player in our team that has that type of mentality. And he's, as much as it's not the best way to have a captain that might not be here long term, this to me screams that Thomas Frank has sat down and spoke to him. We've told him what we're planning on doing. He's buying into it, and we've given him the captaincy to show him that this club believes in him, and we need him to believe in us. And I just think, like you just, you know, the guys who just said, he's never lost a final. How fucking great would it be tonight if Sonny lifts the cup in Europe, you know, in Bilbao, and he goes and lifts the cup tonight? I mean, you know, goosebumps, man, goosebumps. I just think it's the perfect one. I don't think there was another player that we've currently got that he had.
What about Bentancur? Bentancur was a name that was maybe put forward.
No, as much as I think he's a good player or a great player, I don't think he's our captain. He doesn't come across to me as our captain. Whereas Romero, look, we've said, and yeah, he does some stupid things and he gets the yellows and he gets the reds, but he hasn't, I mean, he's calmed down on the reds. But I just think he's one of these players that plays with his heart on his sleeve. And he is that old-fashioned defender. And as much as I don't want to use this name, but it kind of comes to mind, you know, the Tony Adams, what's his name? The Man United defender who had the bloody bandage around his head.
Vidic?
No, before that.
Stam?
Steve Bruce won it. You know, to me, he's that type of defender that just leaves it all on the pitch. And as much as some people don't like him because he sort of has an arrogance and things like that, that to me he's a winner. He's the one player on the team that is like a serial winner. You know, he's won World Cups and things like that. So I just think it's the perfect one. And I don't think he's not afraid to stand on that pitch and give it to the players around him. And when, you know, you look at him and you think, well, Vicario does that, but Vicario does that on every situation, whether it's his fault or the player's fault or whatever. Whereas Romero, he does seem to give it when it's needed. And even when the team are playing badly, he isn't one of those that seems to hang his head. I mean, he maybe doesn't stay at that high standard, but like a Madders, if the team's playing badly, Madders is playing badly. If the team's playing badly, Benson Kerr can be playing badly. If the team's playing badly, other players. Whereas Romero still will stick his boot in. He'll still go for those tackles. He'll still do what he has to do. So to me, he is the perfect leader. Perfect.
He clobbered Harry Kane when we were 2-0 down. He didn't seem to care at all.
A few times as well.
Was it him that was it? I can't remember which one of our players it was where they went down sort of pretending to be injured type thing, and he just grabbed them and picked them up and like, come on, get on with it. He's a no-nonsense player. He's a proper old-fashioned type defender.
For me, he sort of reminds me of like the Graham Roberts, when he was captain, that sort of leader on the pitch, that guy that can step up, from the back line, and really deliver. I also think it's going to make Romero a better player because don't get me wrong, as much as I like Romero, there were mistakes in his game, since his arrival at Tottenham. There has been some goals have been his fault at times. But I've always said, I've always maintained this. I think you give Romero the responsibility that he feels like he deserves, you will see him elevate. You'll see him be a lot more concentrated in games and stuff. But what I love about the appointment in general, old school. Sometimes when your team ain't playing well, sometimes your captain just goes and clatters someone, just rallies people up, riles the game up a little bit, riles the opponents up, starts fights, stuff like that, just to get your players going. That's what a good captain does on a football pitch. Someone that's not afraid to bollock someone or grab somebody. For me, I just think this modern day of captaincy and leadership groups actually is just a representation of a lot of times. There's not really a lot of characters left in the game anymore, not really a lot of strong personalities and stuff like that. Whereas I think someone like Romero, old school, is exactly what this young team is missing. And look, for me, I think it's a great appointment in general, and I think it's a very shrewd one by Thomas Frank. I also want to pick up on what Billy was talking about, and Soren sort of alluded to it as well. Fair play to Thomas Frank, by the way.
Yeah,
and I hope this is a signal to every Spurs fan, because when the decision came about Harry Kane, everyone just sort of was resigned to losing them. Sell him. Let's move on. Wasn't the right decision by the football club in general. We'd never really benefit from it to a large degree. But with Romero, I think people were already with the defeatist attitude again when they came and seen the links around. They're, I'll just let him go. We can't keep letting go of our best players. And I think fair play to Thomas Frank. He's managed to come in. Obviously, like Billy's alluded to, he's managed to speak to Romero, get him to buy in. He's announced him as club captain, and hopefully it'll be a match made in heaven moving forward. But hopefully it also, show Spurs fans that, even if rumours do come around, the right guy in place and the right guy that you can get these guys to commit at Tottenham Hotspur. So I absolutely love that.
I think keeping Romero is better than any centre-back we could sign by miles as well. He's absolutely welcome. We'll never sign a centre-back as good as that at the moment, Tottenham.
I just think at Tottenham, when some of our best players come in, like it's happened in years gone by, Bale and Modric, we're so resigned just to sort of losing them. And I just think by managing to keep Romero, because I agree with you, I don't think you could go out and sign anybody better with the Romero money anyway. I just feel like by keeping him, I think it gives me hope that we can start keeping some of our better players moving forward, with the right manager in charge and stuff. Because at the end of the day, we would have lost Harry Kane sooner if we didn't hire Jose and Conte. We would have lost Harry Kane sooner. So with the right guy in charge and with the right plan around them, you can get these guys to commit. Now we just need Romero to sign on a dotted line. And I think, everybody will then be behind this appointment. I do want to, issue some of the words that Romero did say in his interview today. Where is it? Let me get it.
Just a quick one, Dave. Do you think that's why we haven't gone back in for Guehi? Because we're expecting...
Lad, this whole nonsense, this is what I'm saying. The transfer window is just one big money earner it's just one big corporate business now. People are printing rumours left, right and centre. We had 12 centre-backs at this football club, and people were still printing, we're going after centre-back, we're linked with Sabani. He ended up going to fucking PSG. You know what I mean? We're linked to this centre-back, we're linked to that centre-back. We operate under a wage structure. We have like 10 centre-backs at this football club. There's no way on earth we're going in for another centre-back. And if we do, then again, what is our ambition here? We lack in the forward areas. That's the areas that need to be addressed. Honestly, we should never be in, like, anyone that's saying we're in for a centre back, I'm chalking them off my list of people to believe in the summer transfer window.
Funny about that though is Alistair Gold kind of flipped on it, which I was kind of confused by. He at one point said, like what you were saying, don't believe any rumor of a center back coming in, and then all of a sudden 2-3 weeks later he was saying Spurs are still in line to bring in a center back. So I don't know what to believe anymore with the ITKs, really, to be honest, Dave.
May as well may as well park the coach then in front of that. Make that your new centre back signing. You know what I mean? It'd be cheaper. It's a joke.
Well, the quote you're looking for is that Romero said, "I'm very happy to be the first team captain of the club. It's amazing for me. Today, me and Thomas Frank spoke before training, before the start of the season. I've spoke a lot with him. He's a good coach, and I said thank you for this as well. It's a big responsibility. I spoke with the players, and tomorrow is also another big night for the club, for the players, for the fans. We need to enjoy this moment." So part of the important part of that quote is kind of what
I thought you couldn't speak English.
Well, it's funny is that I don't want to make this a linguistics, thing, but like, there are more native Spanish speakers in the world than there are English speakers. So I think like it's one of those things where Spanish speakers tend to sort of do both. They speak English, but then they tend to speak Spanish quite often because it's a very common language, that everyone speaks around the world, to be honest. But the part of that quote that I thought was interesting is what Billy touched on, right? Is that he said he spoke a lot with Thomas Frank over the course of the summer, basically. And I think what Billy said is correct, is that it must have been an uphill battle for Thomas Frank to try to convince him to stick around. And he's managed to do it. It's a very, very clever move by Thomas Frank.
No, I'd say, look, I think it was his first big test. I think the Harry Kane situation was Postecoglou's first big test and he failed it. And I almost smelled trouble on the rise in the minute that happened, whereas Thomas Frank has passed it this time around, his first big test, and hopefully he'll be the beneficiary of it moving forward. Because at the end of the day, Postecoglou relied on great attackers. He let Harry Kane walk out the door and his sort of quotes were, well, we'll deal with it, rather than, how much of a huge loss it is and trying to convince him to stay. It was almost, well, if you don't want to be a part of this, off you go. Whereas I think Thomas Frank, he does rely on his back line, more than his front line. And I think he's realized that. And I think he's gone, well, you know what? I need to convince this guy to stay. So fair play to him. And I hope he reaps all the benefits for it, because if he does, we will. Big up Seven as well. Good to see you. Big up, lads. Got my BJ top on for the game. Hashtag come on, you Spurs.
Don't show Paul Markey that.
To be honest with you, I would rather start with Udebert tonight, to be quite frank with you. I think we do need ball carriers out wide tonight rather than, someone like Brennan Johnson. But look, if he starts, despite what I say about the guy, he has a habit of nicking a goal. What was it? He went on a 7 or 8 game run last season, where he scored, 7-8 games in a row. Like, he's capable of it. But I just think tonight against PSG, where you're going to be sitting so deep, I do think you need players that can get on that ball and travel with that ball. That's what Son showed he could do down that left-hand side for years. And I think we need someone similar, because at the end of the day, if Brennan Johnson's plays, it will be on the left-hand side, because Kudus has just ousted them already. There's not even competition there. So I would be concerned. I do feel like when you start with Brennan Johnson, you're almost starting with 10 men to a large degree. But big up, Seven. Really appreciate the support. Everyone that's watching at home, guys, please keep getting your comments in. We are trying to bring as many of them as we can as we go along. Make sure you are smashing that like button. But guys, look, no doubt about it, it is an uphill battle tonight. But PSG were beaten by Chelsea in the Club World Cup final. Proof that PSG can be beaten. Chelsea beat them playing counter-attacking football and exploiting the spaces left behind the PSG's fullback. So let's talk tactics. How do we beat PSG tonight? What does the perfect game plan look like for us tonight? And we'll start with you on this, Billy T, and then we'll let Jack go into it. Jack loves tactics, so we'll let him sound off there for a while after you.
We're going to have to pray as our main tactic tonight, I think, man, because I think they're the best attacking side in the world. I think the front three is the best front three in the world. We're going to have to pray. I think our only hope for me, is that the fitness really comes into it. Because if you think about like the first game of preseason, which it is for them, you might hope that most of their players won't be able to play 90 minutes, because that'd be, obviously we saw in the first friendlies for us, often make a lot of changes in those games. So maybe we can just try and keep it to 0-0, 1-1, something like that by 70 minutes and hope that the superior fitness kicks in by then. But I'm not sure there is a blueprint to beat PSG, to be honest, because I think they're the best team in the world. But the only hope that I can rely on is Chelsea and Aston Villa gave them a pretty good game. Aston Villa gave them a good game, and they showed that you can get at them if you really. We're going to have to take every single counter attack. We're going to have to score every single one that we get, because we're not going to get them a lot. They're going to have a lot of the ball. We're going to have to dig in and just pray that people like Kudus can go on and run up the pitch and score, because there's not many more frightening prospects in football than playing PSG, to be honest.
Yeah, no. I mean,
No, there's not. But, Jack, what I'm trying to work out, I suppose, is how much respect is too much respect, and how much do you sort of have to take that respect out and just sort of go for them?
I think Chelsea surprised people because I think everyone sort of thought, what you do against PSG is you do sit back and sort of put every man behind the ball and then just look to hurt them on the counter. I think Chelsea did a version of that, but at times they did actually surprise, I think, PSG by pressing them in certain situations. And then they did, sort of focus on when they did win the ball back, right? They played those big sort of long sort of balls over the top behind those fullbacks that they do push really far forward. Hakimi almost plays like a second striker. That guy Nuno Mendes, is also kind of up there as like a really high and wide fullback, and they just kept hitting it in behind because I think that day as well, I think PSG were missing. I think he's Ecuadorian. I think that guy like Pacho, he's kind of a bit like a Van de Ven, very athletic, very pacey, can sort of recover a lot of those, types of passes, in behind. But I think they had someone else playing that day who just was really struggling to keep up with Joao Pedro. So I think Spurs could try to do something pretty similar to Chelsea, where maybe every now and again you surprise them, by sort of putting a bit of pressure on them, make them uncomfortable. Don't just
Yeah.
make it too easy, to build up and get into our half. But then I think what Chelsea did was they did work really hard. There were periods where you saw, them put every man behind the ball, kind of in a way, a very Thomas Frank mid
Yeah.
block, whatever you want to call it, right? Where it's not totally every man in the box or anything, but it is everybody sort of sitting behind, blocking up the passing lanes in midfield, and then looking to just win the ball back. And it's probably going to be the way we have to go about this because we don't have a number 10. We don't have anybody that can really get on the ball, sort of dictate play. So we're just going to need to ask Bentancur, Pop Matasar, and Palhinha to sort of do what we saw in the Europa League final, just run their guts out pretty much for 90 minutes and just try to win every single ball they can and see if they can immediately after winning it, find a pass in behind for, like Kudus or Odegaard, Johnson, Solanke, whoever it might be. And we're just going to have to outwork, I think, this PSG team. And defensively, we'll just have to be really solid in whatever shape that Frank, I think, picks. But I do feel like Chelsea picked something out with those, passes in behind those fullbacks. I do think that might be the way to go about it.
I think they've definitely given us sort of a blueprint that maybe we can work off. Look, for me, Soren, I don't know how you feel, but I sort of want to adopt their sort of zero respect policy heading into tonight. And what I mean by that is, look, PSG have had very little time off between the Champions League final and the Club World Championship. They've had no preseason friendlies heading into this game. I don't care who you are. I think for the first 20 minutes, if you come back for your first game, you're going to have misplaced passes. You're going to be rusty. You're going to get caught on the ball. We're six games in. We're gearing up for our Premier League game on the weekend. For me, I actually think for the first 20 minutes, if we're smart and Thomas Frank picks the right team, I think we should go for them for the first 20 minutes. Look to force them into mistakes. Yeah, look to kind of force set pieces. We've got wonderful set piece takers. Porro, Kudus, take your pick, whoever you want to put on them. We've got guys that can get on the end of them. But I think most importantly, he's got to pick two wide men. Kudus will be one. But I think this is where, speaking to Mike Aziza here, he says, would be nice if Udaber or Tell had a big moment. For me, I think he's got to pick one of these guys over Brennan Johnson tonight. I know Brennan Johnson was the hero in the Europa League final. But again, he was in the box. But we're going to have Richarlison in there. For me, I think because naturally at times we're going to sit so deep, you need a winger that can travel with the ball, that can carry the ball. Anytime Johnson gets it, he's going to look to turn it back and put someone else under pressure with a pass. And that he's just going to keep the pressure on us. So for me, I think we've got to go with one of these wide men, Mike, and hopefully, to your point, one of them can have a big impact tonight. I really like the look of Odegaard. I just think we're sort of just waiting for that maturity to sort of kick in where he starts making the right decisions. And I think we've got one hell of a winger on our hands here. But for me, I think certainly first 20, 25 minutes, we should go for them. After that, once they start fighting them their rhythm, then I agree with Jack and Billy T. Then you do got to sit in, be nice, compact. You sort of got to block up the middle, allow their centre midfielders to have the ball deep. But then this is critical. And another reason why you can't play Brennan Johnson, you need your two fullbacks or your two wingers to get back and help them fullbacks tonight. PSG, their whole thing is get the ball into the middle, spray it out wide, and let the wingers do the damage. And they've done that routinely. So the wingers are going to have to get back and help them fullbacks. So that's another reason why I don't think Johnson can play. So if Frank picks the right team and goes at them for the first 20, we nick a goal. I think there's an opportunity for us. I do back us to sort of sit in nice and deep and maybe see it out. But I think if we show them too much respect from the start, I think it's going to be a long, long evening, and it'll take very much the same path the way the Bayern Munich game did, in my opinion. But where are you at with it, Soren, tonight?
said it earlier on. The guys have just said exactly the same. That PSG are no mugs. Let's go there first. But like a lot of the big teams in Europe, they want to control the game. They want to, they've got the players that can break us down. And if we allow them to come on to us, we're going to get trounced tonight. We've got to go at them, and we've got to take the game to them somehow. And we're not going to get a massive amount of chances, but every chance we get, we've got to take, and we've got to be clinical. And we know we can be, we just generally aren't. So I don't think it's going to be a great game in the sense of, I don't see the 6-0 unless they score first and score very early. Then things could be different. But look, we're going to watch a team tonight for Tottenham that sit there. We've got a holding proper number 6 in there now. We've got Romero, we've got Van der Ven at the back. We've got probably Jed Spence on the left, and we've got Porro on the right. That's not a bad back 5. And then you have the goalie back 6. So, it's quite a defensive structure there. Yes, the midfield and the creativity is maybe not quite there, but until we see the team and how it's set up, we're not going to know what the idea is up front. But we've got a fair bit of pace in there. If we play Kudos, if we play Odegaard, and Tell, there is some pace there. So we can break, but we saw Chelsea. They took the game to PSG, and they actually made PSG look quite an average team.
They were brave in possession, though. They were very brave in possession, and they were good in possession.
Yeah, but the point is, when you have a team that go and attack PSG, they're not used to that in the same way, that, say, the Premiership teams see it week in, week out, where you've got the top teams have been pressed all the time. They're used to that. Whereas PSG, they're miles ahead of anything else in that league. And the games that they played in the Champions League, most of the time they were on top all game. They look phenomenal. But that Chelsea game just made them look pretty average to me. They didn't look. I mean, the second half was a little bit different, but that first half, they were all over the place.
I think they got exposed as well. I think Luis Enrique is an excellent manager, but he is a very attack-minded manager. Like, he's the guy who created the Messi, Neymar, Suarez front line. I think he's done something very similar with Kavicha, Dembele, Doué, Barcola, that combo there. But similar to what we saw with Ange, I think with Hansi Flick at Barcelona, in the case of Luis Enrique, there's that thing, and I'm speaking about this earlier with Billy, but like, I am sometimes a bit more of a fan of defensive organized football, because by being a very attack-minded team, yes, you can absolutely play some scintillating stuff and really overwhelm teams, but there's always that risk that you take with that. You will leave only a few players, back there. And if players do end up making a mistake in the final third, or they give the ball away in an area that they don't usually want to, you can usually break on them and sort of really punish teams, right? It's often the case that you see plenty of games of football where one team's just completely dominating possession, dominating the proceedings of things, but they just give the ball away in a bad area, and then they just get punched in the mouth, and all of a sudden they're 1 goal, 2 goals down, with the other team only having like 10%, 15% possession, right? It's one of those things in football where no matter how good on the eye you might look, sometimes with attack-minded football, you can get punished, for just that risk that you take by just putting so many players forward and trying to dominate the game that much. And I think that's, again, one of the ways that we could win this game. Is attack-minded teams are always beatable for that reason, in my opinion, where sometimes the boring defensive-minded teams are usually, a bit more frustrating because they don't really do a whole lot to sort of give away, any, bad possession or anything like that, that they're almost more frustrating to try to beat than sometimes the attack-minded teams.
No, look, they can be.
Even
but
Aston Villa scored like 4 goals against them, in the Champions League, right? There were plenty of times where Morgan Rogers, punished them on the break, and Rashford punished them on the break, plenty of times, right? So, and like we saw with Barcelona against Inter, Barcelona are a team that just looked to attack, and they still concede like 4 or 5 goals that they really don't need to, and that's where I think it's my one thing with Luis Enrique. I think he falls in that bracket of it's amazing, beautiful football to watch, but at the same time, they can be vulnerable defensively.
They can be, but I think he'll probably bank on us not being clinical going forward. I mean, last year I watched us break, give the ball to their centre back, and it be turned on when we have when we have the overlap going forward, and it be turned on and put in our own net. Shows how shit we are going forward. We are seriously championship level going forward. We signed half of relegation fodder to create our front line to replace Kane and Son. It's absolutely embarrassing. So I think Luis Enrique, to be honest, I think he'll just say to his players, go out there and play tonight. Don't worry about anything defensively. Johnson ain't going to run in behind you. You know, Richarlison couldn't trap a bag of cement. So, you know, just they'll give you the ball back. All you got to do is just run towards them and they'll give you the ball back. So, you know, I don't think he's worried about that. But that's where I think set pieces are crucial tonight, though, in terms of for Tottenham Hotspur. We have yielded some results from them, you know, over the course of pre-season. I think we hit the post twice against Arsenal. We scored one against Reading, didn't we? I think
Richarlison missed that one from about 1 centimetre as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Exactly, you know, so we have yielded, you know, some decent results from it in terms of preseason, some success from set pieces, and it is something that Thomas Frank's Brentford were renowned for last season. I think they finished 4th highest in the Premier League in terms of goals from set pieces, and it is something that he is bringing, and I think that is an avenue that we can actually use to our advantage against the big teams, because sometimes with the big teams, to Jack's points, they're so focused on going forward and stuff. Sometimes they can be vulnerable from set pieces. You know, they like to switch off from set pieces and stuff like that. And that's where you can get them. And I think the one big thing about Thomas Frank, where it sort of gives us or puts us on an even keel sort of in this game, that if we can shore it up defensively, we will always get one chance from a set piece, and that always gives you an opportunity, always. And we are a lot more organised from them. So I do think set pieces could be a key weapon tonight. In fact, it could actually be what maybe wins us the game tonight. So that's something maybe to keep an eye on. But look, guys, I do want to talk about, you know, the game tonight and then sort of bring in the Burnley game on the weekend. But I just want to say a big up to Giant68. Really appreciate you becoming a new YouTube member, my man. Welcome to the community here, the Irish Hotspur community. We will get back to putting out members content and stuff like that, just exclusively for you guys. There's fan shows and all that sort of good jazz, so make sure you get involved with us. And big up Lily White India as well, becoming a new YouTube member. Really appreciate support on that. Same goes to you. Get involved in the community that we're trying to build here, the big Spurs community. And big up DB. Good to see you. Probably out cutting the lawn today before today's game, were you? I know that's one of your rituals. And big up Terry Wright. And this is maybe an interesting thing to pose to people here today. I think this is one thing that was floated around when Thomas Frank was first appointed. You know, many people speaking about how flexible he is in terms of between back threes and back fours and stuff like that. But I sort of made the case, I didn't think he was going to do that when he came to Tottenham. I did think he was going to go with a back four, because I do think the back three, it's technically a back five. I think it is more defensive. And I'm not sure that's something that fans will put up with at Tottenham. We like our football played in a certain way, regardless what manager we appoint. If we bring a defensive manager in, we still expect them to make us free-flowing and fluid going forward. Is there any opportunity that Frank flips the script tonight and plays a back three? I think many Spurs fans were perpetrating last year when we were losing games. This squad is so much better suited to a back three, and now all of a sudden that's gone out the window. But you know, does anyone think that Thomas Frank could surprise anyone tonight with a back three? Big up, Terry.
I don't think he'll start with it. I think he'll start with a back four, but I think he might move to a back three as the game goes on, which he's done a couple of times in pre-season. But I'd be very surprised if it wasn't our usual back four starting. What do you guys reckon?
I agree. I think the fact we've got Paulinho in says we're going to be a back four and just sit him in front of them. And look, I think had we not got him in, you know, we've all cried out for this monster number 6, and we've kind of got it now. So it'd be quite stupid not to start using him. But I think, like Billy's just said, I think we'll probably play sort of 60 minutes as a back four with him in front, and then when his legs are probably gone because he hasn't played much football, then we might revert to that back three. But yeah, I think as long as we keep it tight, I think there could be a shock on the cards tonight. I really do. And the closer we're getting to kickoff, the more I'm starting to believe in my own hype. So yeah, I you know, it's one of those that I just think something special could happen tonight. And you know, we're going to be the ones celebrating winning a cup, and everybody else is telling us it's only a friendly type thing. But sod that, you know, it's another big cup that could be the start of an era. You know, look,
Sorry.
Slightly changing the subject a little bit, but we're seeing things that hopefully are being done a little bit different within Tottenham. So what's to say we can't go on and win another cup? I mean, we've just won one in pre-season, so another one. We might as well have 3 for the start of it.
Look, the whole idea of winning the Europa League is to try and kick on and put more trophies in the cabinet, turn a new era at Tottenham, an era that maybe younger fans will be delighted to see, where all they know is trophies. Someone like me, Billy T, Jack, Soren, we've had our fair share of heartbreak, but we need to flip that script and enter a new era at Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, Daniel Levy can believe he can be measured by commercial success all he wants. You're measured by what you bring to the club, the success you bring to the club, and the trophies in the cabinet at the end of the day. But for me, I think if this game was a couple of weeks down the line and PSG had friendlies and all that under their belt, I would say, okay, quality-wise, there's no way we're going to live up to it. We're going to be under the pump. But I do feel the fact that this is their first game back, I do feel there is an element where maybe we could just catch them cold tonight. Cold turkey. That would be absolutely brilliant. So I'm sort of on your opinion on that, sir, and I just hope PSG don't surprise me, come back all guns blazing and just pick up where they left off, because if they do, then we are in big, big trouble. But there's every opportunity that if they come back a little bit disjointed for the first half, there's every opportunity we can go and win this. Big up, Fast Radfire. Good to see you. Really appreciate you coming in, my man. But guys, I do want to kick this conversation on. I do want to talk a little bit about how we expect Thomas Frank to handle European football and then Premier League football on the weekend, because we play PSG tonight and Burnley on Saturday. And last season, we really struggled when we had European games followed by league matches. Ange admitted that we did shift focus to Europe, but fans won't accept that again, especially this time around. Is this week a good early test of whether this squad can truly compete on multiple fronts? And I also want to know as well, how does Thomas Frank go about changing the culture and the mindset in the squad? Because last year, I almost felt accepted that we'd drop off in the league, around big European nights. So how do you stop that from creeping back in or allowing that to be the norm? Who wants to go on that? That's a chomper, that.
It's kind of funny that we are almost training for that season in the very, very beginning of the season, where we are about to go from playing Wednesday to Saturday. Even it is kind of funny that he's getting an initial training of that. How do you go about it? I'm not really too sure. I think that's why he's probably paid the big bucks for it, and we just get to sort of talk about it and sort of rip off.
Do you think maybe what he's done with Basuma is maybe a way of trying to eradicate that, Jack?
I mean, I could rant a long time about that decision. I think that was an excellent thing for Thomas Frank to do, because I think he got a lot of respect by doing that and sort of by setting the tone, because in a way, I think when you first come in as a manager, you want to give everybody a clean slate. You want to sort of put your arm around people's shoulders and, be the nice guy. But at some point, you also need to remind the players that you are the authority, around there, that you are the guy that can also lay into the players. I even said that to you about Ange Postecoglou, before, where it felt like when players were maybe slacking off a bit or maybe making mistakes here and there, it felt like maybe Ange was sometimes too much of a nice guy, or maybe had too much of a distance between him and the players, that he didn't seem to have that sort of air of authority maybe about him. And I think Thomas Frank doing that with Basuma actually was a very clever move once again in terms of man management. I just am a little torn on the fact that he's a guy that we know everyone says Thomas Frank is so good because he adapts all the time, right? He changes formation, changes sort of style of play. When you are playing like every 2 to 3, 4 days, is that possible? Like, I think there are plenty of managers who do it, like Unai Emery, at Aston Villa, he changes it up a lot, but I'm not sure how that works, because maybe sometimes if you are just sort of playing kind of the same way all the time, you benefit from just that, that they don't really have to think too much about each game at a time tactically, and they're not sitting in the tactics room for 2 to 3 hours before every single game, because we've heard Spurs players complain about that before under an Antonio Conte. And even Conte, right? Conte struggled with it. Conte struggled playing, Wednesday nights, Saturday nights. He was a guy that really benefited from just playing once a week, to prepare for each and every game. So I'm not sure how Frank is going to handle it, to be honest.
I nearly puked when I heard Davies praise Frank for, he gives us stuff on the opposition. I'm pretty sure he was one of the fuckers under Conte who sat there moaning once he left. We were focusing too much on the opposition and how the defense set pieces, even though we concede from them every fucking week. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I nearly fell off my chair. The fact that he's still here is absolutely, it drives me absolutely insane. Anyway, I'm not going to get stuck into Ben Davies today. I'm going to leave him alone. Hopefully he doesn't even feature today, so I don't have to speak about him. But Billy, I am concerned about this culture still being there, because look, we can say it was just under Postecoglou, but when other players have left the club, we've heard similar things where it's not. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose at Tottenham Hotspur. So that culture is there. How does Thomas Frank stamp it out where others have maybe failed?
Well, I think it's really different. I think, firstly, the reason why it's been there for so long is because it comes from the top, right? And my personal belief is our owners are just not winners. They're not interested in it. Well, they're not as interested in winning as other things, and I think that's the problem, where it's sort of dripped down into the culture of the football club and then into the players. I think it's really difficult for a manager to change that. And had as good a go as anyone and managed to get a trophy, and then I think the answer to the question, how do you balance the two, is you need a squad capable of doing it, and we don't have one at the moment. There's no.
Do you think the captaincy, Billy, will help him? Someone like Romero.
I do think that's the way. You need to buy and have winners in your team like Romero, but they need to be throughout the spine of the team as well. You need like high quality players to do it. I think if you look at the teams that have not, because Newcastle, Aston Villa, they all struggled with Champions League and Premier League. It's a really difficult thing to get right. If you look at the teams that have done it successfully over the last couple of years, Arsenal were in a title race and they got through to the semi-finals. That's because Arsenal go and spend lots of money every single transfer window to have a squad capable of playing 2 games a week. At the moment, we don't have that. And it's much more difficult to prioritize the Champions League and the Premier League than the Europa League and the Premier League, because Europa League naturally you sort of play your second string, and the Champions League you want to play your first string in that. So then what happens to the Premier League? So I'm worried about us. I think we need a lot more quality additions if we're going to be able to manage the two.
100%. Look, it's going to be a difficult task when you don't have the strength in depth. But I do think there are little things that maybe Frank can do. I think hiring Romero, because at the end of the day, you want your captain to sort of uphold your standards when you're not in the dressing room and stuff like that. I think Romero, because he's a natural born winner, I think will automatically won't accept it. He'd be like, why would I accept it when Thomas Frank won't? But I also think Thomas Frank will help himself by what he's done with Basuma. You want to keep arriving late? No problem. I don't care who you are. You just won't come to this cup final. You either buck up your ideas or you fuck off out of the club. I think it's absolutely spot on from Thomas Frank. And I think them things will start setting the culture. I think they are things that maybe the likes of Conte, Jose and Postecoglou to a degree maybe let slide, because they're more so, well, how do I get the best out of the talent if I let them behave the way they want, rather than maybe a lot more discipline or, nailing them and stuff like that. Whereas I think Thomas Frank has made a smart move by what he's done with Basuma. And I honestly believe by going to the press with it, it's last resort. He's, that he's spoken to him multiple times and stuff like that. But there are certain things that I think Frank and Romero can do together to uphold standards. But I think by appointing Romero is a huge one. But sorry, when it comes to style of play, because this was another big one last year, many people said that Postecoglou's style of play, the demands, the way you go pressing the ball and stuff, it just wasn't suited for a hectic fixture schedule that we had to sustain last year, and it's going to be similar this season as well. Do you think Frank's approach is more suited to the hectic fixture schedule, or are we about to find out how adaptable this guy really is? Because he's been portrayed as a guy that's very adaptable, but at the end of the day, his style of play hasn't been tested midweek and weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's just sort of step back a little bit. And, my answer to the question, how do we get a winning mentality into the club and to the team? Well, we've just kind of done that. We've just won a trophy. We've given those players something to aim at, that feeling of winning a trophy for your club. And let's hope, that instills into them to want to do it again and again and again. But when we talk about managers, you all know that, the manager I've always wanted at our club for a long time is Nagelsmann. And he's kind of like a Thomas Frank, where he adapts his gameplay to suit certain teams. And I think Thomas Frank will do that. And we've seen with his previous club where 1 minute he'll be quite attacking and another minute is very defensive. And that, as much as you should set a team up to play in your strengths, that is also a great thing to do, because then the opposition don't know what team's going to turn up. And, that can give you that sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe to go and get an early goal. But the thing with Tottenham that we've got to cut out is this not being able to start. You look over the last however many seasons and we're always slow starters. We're always come out we don't come out the blocks. We're always generally a goal down or whatever and then start to play.
Is that going to change with Thomas Frank? Because that was something he done at Brentford last year. He's got a lot of quick goals last year. He done it against
I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That, these are the sort of things that need to change mentality. And look, if you're a team that is used to thinking, well, we can go 1-0 down and come back, then you've already got that kind of losing mentality within you because you don't care about conceding. You've got to not want to concede. And that's where I think our defence, and that's where Thomas Frank will come in, because he's a lot more defensive minded than Postecoglou was. He can set up a defensive team. He can get his structure in there. I mean, I think it was yesterday with the press conference where he's talking about structure. And that's what you want to hear from a manager, where they're telling you that they're working on these things. And for me, when I look at the defenders we've got, and you're talking Romero, you're talking Van der Ven, you're talking Danzo, Dragerson when he comes back. I think we've got a bloody good set of defenders. And I think they will suit. I mean, I'm not as sure with Van der Ven, because I think he really did suit the Postecoglou system. But we will see now. We're going to see whether he can play that deep lane, or is it deep lane, whichever way you class it as, defending off your own box and things like that. And I honestly don't think we're not going to concede as many goals. I mean, forget the Bayern game.
We're not going to score as many, though.
Well, we're not going to score as many, but if you don't concede as many, you don't need to score as many. So, if you don't concede, you only need to score one to win the game. Let's not forget that. You look at us against Newcastle. You look at us against who else did we bloody play?
Arsenal.
We were quite tight. We weren't conceding loads of games. The only game we conceded badly was Bayern, and there weren't bad goals to give up. They were bloody good goals. Every single one of those was a top class goal conceded that we couldn't have done much about. It wasn't like we looked at it last season, and I bet 90% of the goals we conceded were through individual errors. It wasn't that the other team was that much better than us, that they played around us. We were just shit. And Thomas Frank will change that. He will change the mentality. And so we all talk about it comes from the top. Well, forget about Levy and people like that. The top person that is the most important person now is Thomas Frank. And he has put a serial winner. He's put somebody who wants to win as his captain. Not Mr. Nice Guy, not Mr. All the team love him and all the fans love him and everybody's so happy to. And look, I'm not saying a bad thing about Sonny. We had this discussion the other day. Sonny's gone now. He's not a Tottenham player. He'll always be a legend and he'll always be in my heart. But he was Mr. Nice Guy. If you got a bollocking off Sonny, he'd be bollocking you with a smile. And you'd probably give him a hug afterwards and say, yeah, bud, thanks for that. Whereas with Romero, if he comes storming at you and shouting at you, you're going to stand there and think, oh, fuck. What have I done wrong now? And that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for me, he is the right guy to help Frank change the mentality within the playing team to think we don't want to lose anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, let's wait and see how it happens. I think your thing on Van der Ven is interesting. It's sort of a discussion we were having last night on the fan show where we were saying, with Van der Ven, he looked really good on the Postecoglou because we relied on his pace an awful lot. Yeah. But, people are maybe saying, look, in preseason, he's been a bit suspect playing this much deeper role, in terms of his position and stuff like that. So it's an interesting discussion. We will get onto it, Soren, but I do want to let Billy T go. He has to head off. But I want to say, first of all,
thank you, Billy. So much, man. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. I love your guys' work. Brilliant channel, and I hope to be back on as double European champions, right?
Look, that'd be the dream, my man. That'd be the dream. We got to get you involved here a lot more regularly. We got to make find time with you and get you on a lot more regularly.
Pleasure for me, man. Thank you very much, guys. Good luck tonight.
Good, good luck tonight, Billy. But guys, he does have unbelievable socials. Make sure you get over and check out his Twitter account. Make sure you get over and check that out. Do you know what? Even when we lose, the guy makes me laugh. That's something to be said. Everyone needs to smile and laugh a bit more. So make sure you get over and check out his Twitter and subscribe to that. But also his TikTok as well, guys. Make sure you get over and check that out as well. Big fans of Billy T here, and like he said, we will look to do this a lot more often with him. So if you've enjoyed the discussion today with Billy T, make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure the numbers reflect it, and we'll make sure we can lure him in again. We've got Faz Radfar. Big up, Faz. Good to see you. Can Frank inspire players to win like Ange did? I mean, look, as much as people, sort of got on Ange Postecoglou's back, You know, in on the big occasions, he found the right words, you know, and you could see that through the documentary, and you could see that by a lot of how a lot of the players were sort of a bit upset by his departure and stuff like that. Is Thomas Frank one of them guys? Can he find the right words tonight to inspire these guys? Or is he a guy that just more so relies on what they've worked on during the week, and he sort of enforces that you keep doing what we worked on during the week, that's what will win us the game? I mean, what do you guys think? Because, look, I like Thomas Frank, but he doesn't exactly, you know, get me on a boner. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't make me want to go in there and ride all around me. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think he's just, he's different vibe to what Ange was. I think Ange was that type of manager that would get you to run through a wall when he would give you that speech before final. But then at the same time, did he necessarily prepare you as well tactically, or, instructions, that type of thing before the game, like maybe a Thomas Frank does? I think they have a different sort of, you know, way and manner of going about it. I mean, at the end of the day, Ange Postecoglou clearly in the Europa League games was able to inspire those players to absolutely, put in their all and run through brick walls for him. But then when it came to like what Billy said, to a degree against the, the London teams and the derbies, he wasn't able to do that for whatever reason. In the Premier League, we lost countless times. We even lost to West Ham, I think, twice under Ange Postecoglou. Whereas Thomas Frank is going to have to find a way to inspire these players in all those big games, Champions League matches, London derbies. He's got a lot of big games, including this one tonight, to inspire the players. And I think it is just different ways of going about it, different manners of approaching it. But I think he is one of those that maybe more relies on the build up before the game, all the instructions before the game. And then he probably just sort of reminds them of everything that they've worked on and everything that they need to do in order to win the game. We kind of saw him do that in the Arsenal. That I think he gave a little bit of a pre-match speech there. And he sort of, he had some intensity about him, but like I said, he comes across more like a school principal, or something about him, where he has a quiet authority about him, but he's not, and talking about, what this means to your family and all these sort of things, like Ange kind of did. So just two different manners of going about it. Not saying one is better than the other, but in Ange Postecoglou's case, he was very good at doing it in the Europa League. But when it came to the derbies, he was atrocious at, getting the players inspired. So Thomas Frank is going to have to find a way to do it in all fronts, in all competitions, which is not an easy task.
Where I worry a little bit tonight is, I think, heading into the Europa League final, we had that huge Postecoglou distraction, whether he's going to be here or not next season. And it sort of took all the pressure off the players.
Yeah,
it took a lot of the pressure off the occasion. It took no one was talking about Spursy being Spursy and stuff like that. Whereas in years gone by, it would have been highlighted because you would never really speak about a manager in a final like that. But I think the occasion was highlighted over what Spurs were going to do with Postecoglou, whether he won or lost. And I think the pressure being taken off the players sort of allowed them to perform that night to a large degree. But also a lot of the players wanted to go and win it for Ange, because he sort of he didn't try and deflect it. He took it all on his shoulders, and, it was sort of like a motivation to the players, to a certain degree. And I just worry heading into this final, I don't think they have that motivation for Thomas Frank to a large degree. And I just worry, is Thomas Frank relying on maybe leaving Basuma behind as the motivation for the players tonight? If he is, that's a bit of a concern to me. I think heading into these cup finals, I know sometimes it can be overplayed, but I do think a good rousing speech, and if you hit on the right points, the right sort of emotional points heading into the game, you can really inspire a team to go and perform well above their levels. Do you see that in Thomas Frank, Søren?
But I kind of see a little bit different. I mean, look, let's look at it this way. Ange Postecoglou was obviously a person that could go into that dressing room on an occasion and G them players up for that final. Now, he couldn't do it all season in the Premiership, but he did it on that final. And for that, we have to be forever grateful. Yeah. Those players now know, I mean, I know it's the same with PSG before anybody tells me, but those players have just recently won a trophy. They know what that feeling is. They are on a high, same as PSG, I get it. But Thomas Frank's job's almost been done for him, because he just comes in there, and to me, our players going into the final may have had that rousing speech of Postecoglou and believed in it in that moment. But leading up to that, the amount of defeats we had in the league and things like that, they would have been on a pretty much downer from all that. Their confidence could have been knocked. Whereas you come in now, you've got a manager that suddenly you believe that is going to make you tighter. It's going to make you harder to beat. You've just won a European trophy, and you're going into a game where you will believe you can win it. Now, as you walk out of that dressing room, those words from Thomas Frank could be very, very important. But if he's done his job leading up to that point, it's kind of less important. If he's already making those players believe that things are going to be different because they've already won that trophy.
Did it not come hand in hand, though, Soren? Like, I get you have to set your team up tactically and stuff, but I do think, having a rousing speech on top of that can get them to go and perform them tactics and go and perform above their levels.
The thing is, I mean, look, he comes across. I've only seen him a few times, and he comes across as kind of a nice guy that seems fairly quiet and almost unmotivational, and I get that. But we don't know what he might be like. He might come up with something absolutely incredible in that dressing room. He might stand in there and just say to him, look, I don't know that dreams can come true. You've put your names on that stadium. You will be forever remembered. And, those fans out there, we're all in love with Sonny for lifting that trophy. He could turn around to Romero and say, right, it's your turn now. Get them fans to love you. This is your time. That team that won the Europa Cup, we believed we could do it. Nobody believes you can go into this game. Nobody believes that you're going to win this game. Go out and prove them wrong. That's all he has to say. Go out and prove them wrong. PSG will be sat there expecting to come out and win. They won't be fearing Tottenham Hotspur. They'll be that famous quote will be, lads, it's Tottenham. Don't worry about it. You've won it before you've even kicked the ball. Thomas Frank needs to just go in there and say, lads, you are Tottenham. You are the club. You are the guys that are going to go out there. You've made history. Let's go and make some more history. Let's go and win the Super Cup. We've never won the Super Cup before. We could be the first players to win the Super Cup. What sort of statement is that? And I'll tell you what, if he goes out there and wins the Super Cup tonight, can you imagine the knock on the door or leave his office tomorrow? I've just won you the Super Cup. We are European champ. We are the best team in Europe. Now go and get me those players. Go and get me that Eze. Go and get me that Savinho. We will now go on and win the Premiership.
If we win it, the Eze and Savinho rumours will be quashed like that tomorrow morning, like they never happened. That's a huge concern. But look,
I don't think it will. I think if we go on and win it tonight, I honestly think there is more chance of us going and actually signing those players, because those players will be looking now and thinking, do you know what? They've just won Europa Cup. They've just won the bloody Super Cup against PSG. This team's going somewhere. I want to play for Tottenham Hotspur.
It's one thing wanting to play for Tottenham, but it's another thing Daniel Levy actually wanted to sanction the money for them to come and play for Tottenham. We'll wait and see.
I don't know if it's going to be an Eze, if it's going to be a Savinho, or if it's going to be both, one or the other, whatever. But I think we will spend some money. I think the money will be spent. And
I hope so, because we do need more strength in that. I do just want to say quickly, I know, Jack, sorry, I'm cutting across you as well.
No, I cut across you.
I do want to say just quickly, I wonder how much of there an element that maybe he's picked Romero and that maybe he's going to get Romero to maybe deliver a speech tonight, his first game as club captain and stuff, and that could be the inspiration. I wonder how much will that play an element that maybe he's the guy, I'm going to do all the tactics and Romero's going to be my sort of passion merchant, to a large degree. It'd be an interesting see how that sort of dynamic works out. But I'd like to think Romero's certainly going to deliver one today. It'd be interesting to see where he decides to put the team huddle as well. He's going to continue the culture of putting it across in front of the Tottenham home fans and stuff like that. It'd be very interesting. Sorry, Jack, you wanted to say something?
No, I think it's a good question that you brought up. Like, what type of speech is Thomas Frank going to give? And also, does he need to give an Ange Postecoglou-esque type of speech? I think he probably does. I do feel like there was a really good comment, and I was trying to find it, but I've lost it, that someone said, no. I mean, it was way up there, deep in the chat. But someone did say, in a game like this, you do need that type of speech. But how repeatable is that speech? You can't just use it on every occasion. And so I think that's where that's what I was more or less trying to say, where I think Frank could benefit from trying to channel his best Postecoglou tonight. But maybe Postecoglou's problem in the past was can't just use that speech every time,
Yeah.
like you got to also maybe mix it and pick and choose those moments. And
100%.
perhaps, Frank will benefit from being a guy that sort of better prepares his teams before the game, but then maybe is missing that charisma, that salesmanship that Ange Postecoglou did before the
I
game.
agree with that. I agree with that. Look, it's not something you need every week. It becomes tiresome if you're a player.
You need it for tonight.
Every week. But, it's about picking and choosing your moments. But tonight is one of them moments where you do need one of them rousing speech. Look, as Tottenham fans, finals don't come around all the time.
Exactly.
They do not come around all the time. And tonight is the occasion to unleash a speech. Look, it's going to be difficult. It's his first competitive game. To walk in, cup final, he probably feels like he doesn't even deserve to manage it because he didn't get them there. So he might want to sort of maybe take a back approach and leave it on the players. But I do think tonight is the night to step up and sort of, make one of them speeches. I think, and if he can do it and we can go and win off the back of it, I think it sets the precedent moving forward. If you can beat PSG tonight, then what's stopping you from going and having a really good campaign and kicking on? But guys, I do before we move on, I do want to start maybe moving in and talking about a couple of maybe team selection dilemmas this evening. But before we do, I want to take this opportunity because the numbers are absolutely incredible. Spurs fans are out in their force this evening. They are pumped for this game. It's amazing what a bit of winning can do and how pumped we can get up for final. But there's 2,634 people tuning in across all platforms right now. So those of you who are on Twitter tuning in, if you want to get involved, you want to jump in and get your questions in and stuff like that for us, come over to the YouTube channel. Make sure you press that subscribe button. It's free to do so. Join us over here. Get your comments in the chat like DB and all the regulars here and join in on the conversations. I would also love if you could smash that like button as well, guys. That really helps us in the algorithm. Again, it's free to do. And if there's something that maybe we haven't touched on or interesting conversations, because it is hard to get every single comment, if you want to make it stand out, you can throw it in a super chat, or if you want to grab a channel membership to help support the channel. But most importantly, get yourselves over to the YouTube chat, get your comments in, and join and involved in the conversation. But look, let's move on to maybe some team selection here. Maybe one around Paulinho. Look, Paulinho looked a bit off the pace on his debut against Bayern Munich last week. Would you rather see Paulinho be given another chance tonight despite a shaky debut? Or would someone like Bergvall maybe coming into the midfield with Papa Massar be the safer option for this kind of match? What do we think Thomas Frank is going to do here, guys?
I think you go with Paulinho because what I mentioned earlier, we don't even have a number 10. So I think you just got to go with three very hardworking midfielders that can win the ball back for you in maybe some dangerous areas, because PSG will commit a lot of players forward into our half, and they will probably leave certain gaps exposed. And if we have three industrious midfielders in Bentancur, Sarr, and Paulinho, one of them will be able to pick a pocket of one of those midfielders or one of those players for PSG. One of them will be able to sort of win a challenge, and the referee will just let it go, and then we could potentially hit them on the break. And we also know that Bentancur and Sarr are very willing runners. They will win the ball back, but then they'll be able to make a lung-busting run, into the opposition half as well to sort of start a counterattack. If we had a number 10, I would probably play one in this game. I just don't think Bergvall is ready for it yet. And my other thing with Bergvall is, Dave would agree with this, I think. I don't want to assume that he will. But he does have that tendency to make some mistakes here and there in possession, where all of a sudden, we do end up giving the ball away in a bad area, where he plays up a sloppy pass, and all of a sudden, we're not helping ourselves. I feel like Paulinho, Bentancur, Sarr, they don't maybe have the technical quality all the time. Maybe Bentancur to a degree does, but they don't have the technical quality all the time like Bergvall does. But I think they're less prone to a mistake in possession. They will sort of find the pass that, can maybe get you out of trouble more than Bergvall does. Bergvall takes sometimes very unnecessary risks, or he doesn't seem to sometimes know what's around him because he loves to just carry the ball and sort of be, I think he's such a wonderful player to watch. But in games like this, we can't make any mistakes that end up, giving away a cheap goal. And I hate to be harsh on Bergvall. I think he's more capable of that than maybe the other midfielders available. If we had Madison or Kulusevski available for this game, 100% would play them, because we need a number 10 just to play those balls in behind, just to sort of have that guy that can get his foot on the ball, make something happen when we do have possession, which won't be very often. But, beggars can't be choosers. We're in a situation where no decision is easy, and I would go with just three bully-like midfielders in Sarr, Bentancur, Paulinho.
Sorry, I sort of agree with Jack on this to to a large degree here. I do think Bergvall is prone to losing the ball in that midfield, and that is a huge concern of mine in a game like tonight. I think, with Bentancur, Sarr and Paulinho out of possession, they've all shown an ability that they can get stuck in. But I also think in possession, I think they probably are a bit more of a safer bet than someone like Lucas Bergvall tonight. Do you agree that that will be our starting midfield three tonight? And is there enough creativity in that? Because the reality is, if that is the midfield, Papamatta Sarr is going to sort of be your makeshift number 10. Now, he's not going to be a guy that's going to get on and start spraying the ball around. But he'll get up, turn the ball higher up over the pitch, like he done for the goal in the Europa League final, that won it. Or, he'll get on the end of something, whether he chases up a shot or puts one in from the edge of the box. And I think that's maybe what Thomas Frank probably will end up relying on today. Do you think Bergvall could come in and maybe be that creative force, maybe better than maybe what Papamatta Sarr is?
Yeah. I mean, I get where you two are coming from, and I kind of do agree with you. But for me, I think we start with Bentancur, Paulinho, and Bergvall. And I think we give Bergvall that free role, basically. And we say to Bentancur and Paulinho, look, just basically sit, just as much as I do think, like you say, there's a mistake in Bergvall. I also think he's got that creativity. He's got that no fear type thing, and that might just be the difference tonight. But I think by doing that, it's harsh on Pape Sarr, because Pape Sarr has played pretty well, and he has shown us a couple of glimpses. He can go and score a goal and things like that. But to me, because of the lack of creativity we've kind of got, I think Bergvall's got to start. And I think he'll be quite hungry. He'll want to go and prove himself in a big game like this, because we haven't really seen him in a big game like this. So, now's the chance. And he's got a season under his belt. And the thing, let's not forget as well, hopefully, he's not going to need to be defending as much as what he has done against other teams where he's made those mistakes on the edge of the box and, nearer to ours, because you've got that monster number 6 in there now. We've got that defensive player. We're going to be playing a lot tighter. We're probably not going to be quite as far up the pitch and pressing. So, in theory, it should allow Bergvall to be a little bit more creative. Or it allows Bergvall and Bentancur maybe to swap between them and be the creative player. But to me, I'd like to see Bergvall play and possibly play him almost in that number 10 role. But to chuck a little bit of a left field curve in there, what about 2 strikers? And Bentancur and Paulinho sat in the middle. Or, like maybe a Tell running off Solanke, or a Tell running off Richie, or Richie more on the left and that Tell in the middle. But, sort of a more attacking kind of striker stroke number 10 player.
Yeah, no, look, I hear what you're saying. Look, I would make the argument, could you maybe push Kudos into that role? I think he'll work hard out of possession. I think he'll give you a bit of quality, in possession to I think he will. But I don't know. I think it's hard to take Papamatta Sarr out. He's been our biggest goal threat, in terms of pre-season. He's worked incredibly hard. He turned up on the big occasion. He's the one that won that ball over when everyone else wasn't brave enough. He got on the end of that. He turned the ball over and he delivered the cross for Johnson's goal. I don't think he gets enough credit. So for me, I think it'd be very harsh if you left someone like Papamatta Sarr out today. I think Bentancur is probably our best player in terms of transitioning possession out from the back line into the forward line. He does it consistently and he does it very well. We're very rarely losing the ball. And I think he has to play beside Paulinho, because what I like about Paulinho is your traditional number 6 defensive midfielder. He'll pull down attacks. He's aware of the danger. He has no problem taking yellow cards. Before he moved to Bayern Munich, I think he picked up like 17 yellow cards. He got the most that season. He just pulls down attacks. He allows you to get reset. And I think Thomas Frank will like that about him. But in possession, he was a bit rusty against Bayern Munich. So I think you have to play a Bentancur in there. And then I also think you need Sarr in there for them legs as well. So I think to a large degree, I think Frank's sort of hands is tied behind his back. I do think Bergvall is a bigger risk, in playing him tonight. But look, let's wait and see what he does. I think the team sheet will probably be out in about 9 minutes' time. So, we'll see what Thomas Frank does there when he announces it. And who have we got here? Rayman, big up Rayman. Good to see you. Great to have Dave and Jack, the dynamic duo, back. Come on, you Spurs.
Thank you,
really
man.
Appreciate it, Rayman. Look, you know me. like these pre-match build-ups, they're my bread and butter. I absolutely love them. I'd only be sitting here, singing Spurs songs and wrecking my missus' head anyway. So it's great that I can sit here and, speak to Tottenham fans about the build-up to the game and stuff like that, and just sort of take out the nervous energy there sometimes, So big up, Ray, man. It's absolutely great to be back, lad. Good to see you in the building. What other position are we going to maybe talk about then? Yeah, guys, I sort of do want to talk about the front line, because one reoccurring theme this preseason has been Tottenham's. Tottenham have struggled to create meaningful chances and score from open play. But with that in mind, Thomas Frank faces a crucial decision tonight. Which front three will unlock the PSG backline? Between Brennan Johnson, Kudus, Tell, Richarlison, and Odegaard, who are all in contention for just 3 starting spots tonight. What is your attacking front three that you would go with tonight to try and unlock PSG, and why, Jack?
I'm going to kind of build off of a point you might have made earlier with the only chance we have, because PSG will pin us back. I think we're under no illusion with that. There'll be plenty of times where we'll be really stuck in our own half. And I think what we'll need is at least 2 good ball carrying players in the team that can be able to take it past 1 or 2 of those PSG players. Then all of a sudden, a lot of sort of gaps will open and we'll be able to carry ourselves up the pitch and potentially hit them on the counter. I think with someone like Brennan Johnson, like you mentioned before, he's just not that type of guy. Like when he receives the ball, even in a counterattacking scenario, he's just going to pass it backwards to where it came from. He's not going to look to take on his man and be brave and try to get us out of our own half. And also as well, he's not necessarily one to work especially hard out of possession, consistently at least, to try to win the ball back for us and then drive us up the pitch. I think we need, if we could have 3 Kuduses up top, I think we have a really good chance of actually doing something in this game. But unfortunately, we can't clone him as of yet. So what we need is, I think, Kudus. And I would go with Odegaard, because I think Odegaard has a better chance of picking up the ball, potentially taking it past a PSG player. And then again, just getting us up the pitch, give us that relief, because that's what you need when you're sitting back for 5-10 minutes straight. You need someone, when they do get the ball as a forward, to be brave enough to try to sort of create something. And this is the point that maybe you made earlier too, Dave, was Richarlison has shown it's like passing off of a brick wall, or it's like passing off of a cement truck or something with him, with the build-up play. He's just someone that we can't rely on.
So painful to watch.
I don't know what it is, but he's playing even worse than you and I might have imagined him. And you and I have backed Richarlison in the past, but preseason thus far, every time you hit the ball into him, it bounces off of him like 20 yards, where I think what we need to do is try to get the ball into Odegaard's feet, into Kudus' feet, and have them just drive us up the pitch and give that defense, at least for a few minutes every now and again, that bit of relief that they aren't feeling like they're just defending for 90 minutes straight, that we can actually get into their half. And I don't think that will come through a James Madison-esque pass and behind all the time. Like we said before, we don't have any number 10s that can get their foot on the ball, sort of give that ease of calm, to the rest of the team. We'll have to just rely on good, I think, ball carrying wingers. And the 2 that we have, the only 2 that we have at the minute until Savinho and maybe Eze come, is Odegaard and Mohamed Kudus. Brennan Johnson, to me, I think he'll stall and maybe almost in a way break up any sort of counterattacking opportunities that we might have in this game, because I expect us to be very deep in our own half at times. And so what you need is someone like Kudus just to be that maverick, take it past 2-3 players, and then all of a sudden we're maybe in a 3-on-2 scenario, and that's what we'll have to rely on.
Yeah. No, so are you ruling out that Solanke is even in contention to start tonight, Jack? Because I know he traveled, but how fit is he really?
I don't know. I agree with you. How fit is he really? Is it worth risking him in this game too, knowing that, you have a Premier League season ahead where he'll play, along, competing with Richarlison? I don't know. And also, I mean, Soren and I spoke about this a week or 2 ago. We're convinced that there's maybe something wrong with the training ground, or, like just the luck that we have with injuries at the minute is just so poor to even risk Solanke for this game. I wonder, I think you might as well just throw Richarlison out there.
Yeah.
It pains me to say that, but I don't know. Soren and I had this conversation about injuries. We're just so unlucky. And we saw James Madison, right? Even he came back to try to nurse himself, from his own injury. And what happens to him? He gets out with an ACL tear. Like at this point, like I'm starting to say, wrap up Solanke and cotton wool. Don't even let him out there. Pains me to say
I'd almost hold him back for the weekend, to be honest with you. I'd just go with Richarlison tonight. As much as it pains me at times, I think Richarlison as an impact player off the bench I think he's got use, but I think as a starter, I think he just kills so much attacks. You know, every time the ball comes into him, it's bouncing everywhere. Like at one time, someone laid a lovely soft pass into him, and he's end up chipping it. He gives it away. I'm just like, can you not just take a lovely little touch, lay it off, spinning behind, or it's easy to do, and he just can't do it. It's impossible.
Whereas with Kudus, right, we were saying 40-yard passes were being pinged to his chest, and it was like
it's like a bullet coming out of a sniper sometimes, straight towards his head, and he just jumps up, controls it. It doesn't matter whether there's 2, 3 players around him. He just comes out with the ball. With Richarlison, he just makes it look so bloody difficult. He actually makes football look like a really hard sport to play. It's really starting to bug me. It's really getting on my nerves. Like his biggest problem as well is half the time when the ball comes into his feet, he's always holding off the defender's side on. So he's trying to control it with the outside of his foot. The guy can't even control it with the inside of his foot, let alone trying to control it with any other part of his foot. So that's my big problem. A guy like him just needs to use his body, get in front, nice and wide, put your arms out, trap the ball, give yourself a second or two, get your head up, pick your pass, your job is done. Spin in behind. But it's impossible. So I think we have to go with the wingers tonight. I think we have to look for wingers that you can get the ball into and they can travel with that ball. I think that's what we're going to be largely relying on tonight. Kudus is perfect for that role. I can't wait to see that guy in action. I actually really hope that he has a big moment in tonight's game. Sort of, guys, I've arrived. All your attacking concerns, don't worry, Dave. I've got them on my shoulders. I'll carry them on my back this year. I'm really hoping he can turn up with that big moment tonight. Because at the end of the day, it's why he signed for Tottenham Hotspurs. He wasn't going to get them big moments with West Ham. He knew where they were coming, and that was this great club, Tottenham Hotspur. So hopefully he steps up and seizes that opportunity tonight, announces himself on the world stage. On the left, I do fear he's going to go with Brennan Johnson. I almost feel like Brennan Johnson has something on these managers at this moment in time that they keep picking him. But I think it'll be the wrong option. I think you've got to go with Wilson Odobur. Let him run the legs off a fullback and then get Johnson involved. But Soren, what's your idea front three tonight? Do you think me and Jack are being harsh? Because I know if Drew was here, Drew wouldn't tolerate us speaking about Johnson like that.
Yeah, I'm actually scared to actually answer this question.
We'll mute ourselves.
Richie up front for me. Solanke can't start. Richie plays the first 60 minutes, 70 minutes maybe, brings Solanke on for the last 20. Tell on the left, Kudus on the right. I just think it's a no-brainer, top front three. I get all the hate for Richie, and I know.
The thing is, I actually really like Richie as a person and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm too sentimental.
I'm being an advocate, but he's pissing me off. He's becoming really difficult to watch. Sometimes it makes it look like we're trying to play rugby.
Yeah, I mean, he is me. I think I'm at the stage now where I just want him to prove everybody else wrong and make me right that he's a player and he's going to suddenly come good. And it's almost, when you dig that hole and you've got to the bottom and you ain't got a ladder to get out, so you've got to just keep digging. And that's the way I feel with Richie, that I've backed him and backed him and backed him, that I can't not back him anymore. I've just got to keep going with him. And I just think he's got to come good. I'm praying he's got to come good. He's going to be Brazil's number 9 in the World Cup next summer. So he's going to come good. That's not an
indictment of his level. That's just an indictment that Brazil have shit strikers to pick from.
No, he's because he's a world-class striker. It's like I say, the shovel I've got is massive, lads. Don't underestimate it. There's going to be a Kudus cross, and Richie's going to run in there, and he's going to trip over his shoelace. It's going to come off his head in the top corner, and that's going to win us the Super Cup tonight.
He's going to accidentally scorpion it in.
But he's going to claim he meant to do it, so I'm not bothered. Or he's going to be running and he's going to turn one way and it's going to come up his ass and go in the. I don't care how he scores. He's going to score tonight. I'm predicting a Richie goal to win us.
But this is another reason why we need to sign Eze, we need to sign Savinho, and then you got Kudus either side. So you're not always relying on getting the ball into Richie and getting that hold up. You're literally going, right, get it into one of these three. Richarlison, you just sit in the box. Because as a striker in the box, I really like him. He's a shithouse. I like his work ethic. He will get himself in positions to try and sniff an opportunity. He will put his head in where most other strikers maybe wouldn't. I like him in that regard.
PSG won't want to play.
To try and build attack stuff and try and build this fluid attack and play, it's impossible because you put it into him. Some player goes to run off him looking for the return. It's gone 50 yards back into the fucking south stand, and the player's being caught out, and then it ends up in the back of our net. It's impossible to play off the guy. We need to get, even with Solanke to a large degree, you know, we just need to get a number 10 and another winger so that we can play into that 3, let them take the pressure off the striker, and just say to the strikers, just worry about being in between the posts and scoring goals.
PSG won't want to play against Richie. Not because he's a world-class player, but because of he's a little shit. They will not want to play against somebody like Richie up front. And that, to me, is where tonight his strength will be. And look, as much as it's not what we want from a striker, he'll close down. He'll run around like a blue-ass fly. And that's his strength maybe tonight, that it's not necessarily his touch. It's the way he breaks up play sometimes. And I know it's not what we want from our striker, and I know it's not good enough for team to be, you know, to have that. But tonight, that could just be important. That player that's just another addition to breaking down their play, and he could get us a free kick in an important position. Porro comes up, steps up, bang in the back of the net. So
I agree with that, Soren. I mean, what I would say is, Dave might agree with this too, because he's made this point about Richarlison. I actually think we should have him stay almost as far away from the build-up play as possible, where he doesn't play with his back to goal. You know what we saw with Chelsea, right? Joao Pedro was that guy. He just kept making runs in behind, forced those PSG defenders to follow him because they were playing him in there. I think we could have Richie make those runs, and then you try to, if you want to play short, if you want to sort of build up, you then play the ball into the wingers like Kudos, like Odegaard to drag us up the pitch. But then you have Richie. Maybe sometimes they're decoy runs. Maybe sometimes they're just there to sort of stretch the defenders. But also you just have it as like a legitimate option. Just ping it in behind. Have him sort of like Soren is saying, shithouse his way, you know, onto the ball, earn a free kick, give us that bit of relief, you know, give us that opportunity to get a breath, you know, here and there. I think you have Richie, because a lot of these games he's playing with his back to the defender. And I think in a game like this, he did that against Bayern, right? And that's what we're complaining about. Every time we played it into him, it just kept bouncing off of him. Maybe this game, just don't even have him do that. Just have him make runs in behind, see if you can find him. And then if not, you know, at least you earn yourself a bit more space for someone like Odegaard, maybe Kudos to get onto the ball instead.
I just
have him do what Joao Pedro was doing, you know, for Chelsea, you know, just make those runs in behind. Don't participate in the build-up play, you know.
It's just I don't want to be sitting here this year praising our strikers for working their nuts off.
No, I agree.
You know, I want to see a bit more quality in possession. I want to see a bit more goals. I want to see more than just working their nuts off. But guys, I do want to. Is this Richie's last sort of chance to prove he's the guy? Because for me, if he doesn't step up in form tonight, I think we've got to bring in another striker before the window closes. I hate to say it, but I think we'll have to. For me, I think tonight is his last chance.
No, I disagree in the sense of tonight is his last chance. I think the club already know we need another striker. I don't, but when you've got Solanke only just coming back, we're probably not going to get. We're not as much in need of a striker as we are a number 10. That number 10 is the most important, and that sort of. Maybe, you know, the Eze, the Savinho 2, rather than an actual striker, because if we get the quality in midfield that can score goals, it kind of takes it a little bit away from the strikers, and then roll the striker on to January or maybe next summer. And you've already got a squad in place with some big names that you just then bring that big striker in. And look, a couple of people in the chat, I am not saying Richie is a great player and that PSG are going to not want to play against him because he's great. I just think nobody likes playing against that type of player that's just a little shit. They hate it. And, you know, you don't know what he's going to do. Even he doesn't know what he's going to do, for God's sake. So I just think for the short term, we've just got to put up with Richie. And I don't know. I just think if he gets his confidence, if he bangs 1 or 2 in, you'll see that player that we kind of saw. Was it last season where he had that run of 6 or 7 games and he was starting to score and his touch was coming back and things like that. Now he's never going to be a great player. I am not ever saying that, but I just think for a game like tonight where we are underdogs, we are going to be under the cosh a lot. you want somebody going in there breaking up that play, and he is that type of player.
He is, but look, at the end of the day, a striker, the name of the game for strikers is to score goals. You got to
Who else
score
have we
goals.
got, Dave? We haven't got anybody else.
I
That's
know,
the
but I
problem.
just don't want to be praising them for working hard and being a disruptor. They're all things a striker should be doing anyway. But at the end of the day, he's got to score goals. And I just think, look, if you bring in the right support cast, I do think Solanke and Richarlison will up their goal output, and then you're not relying on them so much in the build-up play to a large point. But if you don't bring in them guys, you are relying on them to come into the build-up play. And Solanke's better. Solanke's not fantastic at it, but he's better at it than Richarlison. It's going to become very largely frustrating to watch, and it's going to end up looking a lot like what we saw last season to a large degree moving forward. And it's just a frustration of mine, and I think it's an area that if the board really want Frank to succeed here, if the board really believe, and Daniel Levy and Van Eyck weren't just flirting over a bottle of red wine and they got a little bit loose, and he really believes that he wants to go and win a Premier League and a Champions League, you've got to fix the issue. Because at the end of the day, if they can't hold up a ball, it's going to keep coming back. You are going to concede goals. You're going to lose games because of it. Last season, we conceded a bit defensively, but we had some great breakaways. We had possession in opposition half. We just couldn't create. We couldn't score goals. We couldn't capitalize on big moments in games. And you're asking these players to go and do the same thing that they're proving that they can't do. And I just think if you've got ambition, you can't rely on Richarlison being your striker to hold up the ball and build up attacks around them. I'm sorry, you can't.
So on that premises then, Dave, for argument's sake, as a conversational piece here,
I'd rather stick Kudus up front.
Yeah, but we are going to sign, say, Eze, and we're going to sign Savinho, but we have to drop one of those signings to go and get a striker then instead.
Oh, no, so look, if we get Eze and Savinho, I'll hold back on the striker. I'll hold back on it.
That's what I'm saying,
if we don't get them, and the board, they have to go and get a striker then. If they're not going to sign an Eze and a Savinho, then the only next pivot is you've got to go and get a striker that can do that can do all the right things.
You see, this is the point, though. I mean, again, if we go and get the Eze and Savinho, in Dreamland, this team is a totally different team to what Ange Postecoglou had. It's a different system. It's a different way of playing. We might suddenly see Richie where he's not having to hold the ball up. He's not having to control the ball and run.
Here we go.
All he's got to do is
David Ornstein from The Athletic. Neither Tottenham or Arsenal are prepared to pay the finances that Crystal Palace will be looking for at this moment to do the deal for Eberechi Eze.
Well, we've said this so many times, Dave. All these people telling us what isn't happening until it actually happens, we don't know. Now,
I know, but I can't help but get excited.
I know, and I get that. But look, until the window closes, we don't know who's coming in, and both deals are going to be hard to do. We know that, but we had this last summer where everybody was convinced we were going to sign Eze. Everybody was convinced, he was coming. He was a Tottenham player. We've seen him at Tottenham. He's been in the box and he's done this. It didn't happen. It might not happen this time. We will sign somebody. I don't know who it's going to be. And look,
but this is the problem, though, Soren. We're in bad need, which means you are going to have to finance a deal that maybe isn't in your favor. The board aren't prepared to go and do it. Like, Eze is a guy that walks straight into this team and improves the quality, appeases every Spurs fan. We're in need. Now isn't the time to sit around and go, well, we need to go and find a cheaper alternative. Now is the time. You've left it that long. Now is the time where you have to be prepared to pay a bit extra to get your player in. I'm sorry, I'm not giving them a pass. The deal is there to be done with the guy. Go and get it fucking done. We are in urgent need.
But Dave, everybody, I mean, up until that one, everybody else is telling us that we're very interested, and we know what the deal is, and we're happy to pay that. So if everybody chucks out the same story, they could all be wrong. So if one person chucks out a story that suddenly we're not going to get him, he's got a very good chance of being right. So my argument is, with a lot of these in the nose and a lot of these journalists and things like that, you throw enough mud, something sticks. Eventually, you throw something out that's right. Now, I don't know who to believe anymore. We could do this deal, we could do that. We've got these finances coming in, we've got this money coming in, we've got this money. We're going to sign this player, we're going to sign that player. Tottenham have proved to us over the last few years that everybody we're linked to generally doesn't come, and the ones that we didn't know were coming come. So who knows who's going to come? Let's just wait and see. If by the end of the transfer window we haven't signed a decent player, then I think every single Spurs fan out there, I mean, and even myself, and you know how I don't normally do this, need to ask for that change, because this window is the only window that matters right now. We've just come off a European Cup final that we've won, and we cannot go into next season, and we are weaker. We've lost our captain from last season. You know, the team's a year older. We've signed Kudos, but we haven't really got anybody else in you, because the players that we have signed were already here. We've just signed them permanently now. So if the board do not come out and back Thomas Frank now, unless Thomas Frank has come out and said he's happy with what we've got, which then he goes down in estimation.
He's already sort of alluded to that already. Look, that's just
he has.
That's just the line that every manager takes at Tottenham now when it comes to the transfer window. They foresee that we ain't going to get what we need, so they just toe the line now. Postecoglou said it in his way. Other managers have said it in their way. The life's already being sucked out of him. And to make it worse, I'm seeing pictures of here, Johan Lang on the pitch with the team and the playing staff. What does this guy think we are? Fucking Harlem Globetrotters. We will be if the guy went and actually done fucking transfer business. What the fuck is he doing on the pitch around the coaching team and the players? Get him fucking out of the club. He's useless.
He's doing his best Paratici impersonations with the headphones and everything.
The thing is, though, as much as we're all hung up on an Eze and a Savinho, it doesn't have to be those two players. It doesn't have to be, let's get past the fact it has to be.
The thing is, they're going to be worse players coming in the door now. That was best case scenario.
But the point is, yes, there might not be an Eze, there might not be a Savinho. And look, I'm also going to jump on the bandwagon of say we can't sign a kid. We cannot be signing kids again. We've got to get some sort of player that is good enough to come into the first team and improve it. They cannot just be squad players. But the argument I've got is it doesn't have to be Eze and it doesn't have to be Savinho, but it has to be damn good quality players.
What I'm kind of torn up about, though, is that they're going to be around the same price, Savinho and Eze. Like, Manchester City reportedly, again, I only believe the ITK is very, very little with only so much salt. But they've said, they're holding out for 70, 80 million. We're getting the rumors that, Crystal Palace are holding out for 80 plus million, for Eze. So, if Spurs, if these are the two they're looking at, it's going to be one or the other. Personally, I think we need Eze more than we need a Savinho. But point is that one of them, they're both kind of around the same price. It's not like we're saving money on one or the other, really. So that's just my other thing. Maybe with Savinho, technically cheaper wages, but that's sometimes a big factor. At Spurs.
The thing is, though, Jack,
why is nobody else? And Ornstein, we all know, is an Arsenal fan, so maybe he's just very jealous that.
But why is nobody else going for Eze? Eze for the last couple of seasons has been the standout player in the Premiership. Well, why is nobody else going? If he's that good,
I think it's the price. I think it is the price. I think a lot of people maybe aren't willing to pay.
We're looking at players that. If the reported figure is 68 million, then we're looking at players that are moving for that aren't necessarily of Eze's caliber. Well, if he is that good, and if he is the perfect player, then he's not just the perfect player for us, he's the perfect player for others. Well, say Newcastle go and lose Isaac. They're not being linked to Eze, are they? So what is it about Eze that all the other teams don't want him neither?
Well, Ornstein is actually saying the inverse of the number that you gave. He said 86 million, not 68. So maybe that's, again, what it is. Maybe it's 86 million pounds is what's throwing people off. And maybe they think that's not worth. And I'd imagine he'd be coming on wages around like 200K or something like that too. Someone like an
anyway,
I'm not saying that's the excuse. I'm just kind of
all
saying.
Summer we've been told it's 68 million buyout clause. Well, if all summer we've been told it's 68, how has it suddenly jumped to 86?
Well, that's
maybe to your point, maybe Ornstein's intentionally putting out something different to get the clicks and to get the engagement and everything.
The buyout clause has to be met by the 15th. If it's not met by the 15th of August, then Palace can technically charge what they want, and I presume maybe Ornstein is going off the basis.
We're talking right now.
Tottenham and Arsenal. I presume Palace in the release clause would probably want the majority of that money up front both Palace and Tottenham probably don't want to pay that because, you know, a lot of teams are looking to get their moves financed because they don't have the cash readily available anymore, which is hamstringing, you know, a lot of what clubs can do this summer along with the PRSI and stuff. So clubs now need payments done in certain structures, certain ways. And maybe it's just one where Tottenham and Arsenal don't have that money to pay the majority up front. But, you know, maybe David Ornstein knows that and he's going off the basis that there's going to probably be a shootout between the 15th and the end of the window. And after that, Palace can sort of charge what they want. And if you're Crystal Palace, you're going to charge an astronomical number because you have very little time then to replace him, you know, at Crystal Palace. And you're going to be charged more for your signings and stuff. So I think from now on, if Tottenham don't want to meet the release clause, then they're going to have to wash their hands with it. That if they want a certain caliber player between now and the end of the window because they've left it so late, they're going to pay for it, which, you know, worries me because Daniel Levy, and he says before, and he prides himself on this, he dictates the terms. You know what I mean? If he doesn't get it to his terms, which means we will then go after a low caliber sort of player. You know, with Udebur last year, we were all expecting, oh yeah, we'll get in some decent caliber forward players. We brought in Wilson Udebur because all of our other options, the likes of Pedro Neto and stuff, we couldn't get over the line. Pissed about with negotiations and shit like that. I'm fed up with it. I'm absolutely fed up with it. It's concerning. Anyway, I'm waiting for this lineup to come out. It doesn't seem to be out yet.
Yeah, it doesn't seem. Yeah, I'm keeping an
there.
eye on
It is out. It is out. So we'll go. Quick thoughts on the lineup here,
I'll share
guys.
my screen.
Okay, Jack will share his. We'll get the quick panel's quick thoughts on the lineup. Guys, you give us your thoughts in the comment section below. And then we'll end and we will be back for the watch along starting at 7:15. But 09 Spurs says Johnson key tonight. So much space to use his pace in behind. Great news. Johnson doesn't start tonight. Johnson is on the bench. So that is absolutely brilliant. Look, I do understand what you're saying, 09 Spurs, but I think maybe later on in the game that could become a factor. But I do think tonight, like I said, I think we need wingers that can pick up the ball and run. You need players that can carry the ball tonight, and that's not what Johnson is known for. So for me, I think maybe right decision to leave him out of the starting lineup, 09 Spurs. But he does have an impact to play off the bench. You know, if we can keep it tight, he can come off the bench and nick a goal. And big up, Reckless Madness. Good to see you. But Jack, let's go through the lineup.
We have potentially a back three could be the situation here. Vicario, Pedro Porro, Romero, Danzo, Van de Ven. So 3 center backs there with Bentancur, Palhinha, Sarr, Spence, and Kudos and Richarlison. So I think it's a back 5-3-2, something like that. 5-3-2.
Van de Ven's playing left back.
No, I think he's because we have Pedro Porro and Spence in the same team.
He's gone 5-3-2.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see Spence. Sorry, sorry.
Romero, Danzo, and Van de Ven will play centre back. Porro will play right wing back. Spence will play left wing back with Palhinha and Bentancur sitting as a midfield 2. Or sorry, Sarr in there as well would be your midfield 3. I presume Kudos playing up alongside Richarlison as a front 2. Did you not say go at front 2 today, Sarr?
Yeah.
Or was it Jack?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see Spence that far down the list, so I just looked at the first bit and thought, shit, Van de Ven's playing left back.
Stuck him in there.
Unless he's going to convert Jed Spence to a winger, which I highly doubt, or Porro goes up right wing, which I highly doubt. But, it does look like it's going to be a 5-3-2. So, guys, in the comments, let me know your thoughts on that. Soren, we'll get your thoughts on that, and I think we'll hold you back, Jack's thoughts for the start of the watch now.
I mean, it's going to be interesting how it does, but I think, like you say, I think it's going to be a back 3. Like you say, Porro and Spence sitting, and Bentancur, Palhinha, and I wonder if Kudos is no, because Sarr's there, isn't he? So, I don't know how it's going to pan out. Actually, it's kind of Kudos. I wonder if Spence is going to play up front, maybe.
I doubt it, surely no.
No, I think
you're
more likely right by saying maybe there's a chance one of them plays right wing or something like that between Spence and Porro. But I do think it's going to be a 5-3-2 because we know Frank is by no means, against something like that, And then he'll probably look to bring on forwards later on in the game. That's what I could see happening.
Yeah.
The only thing with that is if it's going to be like a 5-3-1, a 5-3-2, then.
I think it will be a 5-3-2. The only other thing I can think of is if you play maybe Spence as one of the wingers and hoping that he gets back and helps the fullback where maybe he doesn't trust one of his other wingers to do that maybe. But to be honest with you, I think it's just a flat out 5-3-2. I think I'll be very surprised if it's not. I think he'll look to get Kudus a lot closer to Richarlison, look to hold up the ball, and then play maybe the one of the wing backs in behind. I think what the game plan you'll see is ball into Kudus. He holds it up, gets it out to Spencer Porro, who's overlapping. They'll look to get it in, get it out wide, cross it into maybe someone like Richarlison in the box. I think that's maybe what we're potentially looking at here today. And look to PSG. Sorry about that. PSG on the counter, a bit like what Chelsea done. Get the ball into Kudus, hold it up, exploit then the space in behind the fullbacks. I think is maybe what we're looking at doing here. To something similar to what Chelsea done. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do think a 5-3-2. I think it's wishful thinking it will be a 4-2-3-1 or whatever. But Soren, score prediction, my man.
2-1 Tottenham.
2-1 Tottenham. I'll take it now. I'll snap your hands off for it now, lad. So I would. Well, look, that brings us to the end of the show, guys. I want to appreciate all 2,700 people that have shared, the couple of hours with us on the build up to this game. I want to say a massive thank you to Billy T as well.
Yep.
Guys, if you have enjoyed this on other platforms, make sure you get across to our main platform, which is YouTube. Make sure you smash the subscribe on the channel and make sure you smash a like on the stream. And I welcome you all in. To everyone that's tuned in on YouTube, thank you very much for your contributions today. Getting your comments in the comment section as well. We will be back for a watch along starting at around 7:15, building up a half an hour before the game and then getting in and doing the game. So make sure you go on, get your sandwiches ready or your dinner ready, get the beer in the fridge, and make sure you get back here and join us for the watch along. I want to say a big up to Mr. Shire. He also said Tottenham not going to get another effing left back. I mean, that should be on the cards as well. But David, we know when we have problems, we're not the most ambitious about going around and fixing them problems. But he also says Coy's a member for 22 months.
Thank
it's
you
great
so much,
to see
David.
you back, Davey. I know he's had a bit of a difficult time. He's had his own health problems and stuff like that as well. So big up, Davey. Good to see you back around. And hopefully you're rejuvenated to go again this season. Let's see how long the good times can last this time around. But big up, Davey Shire. Good to see you in, tuning all the way in from Oz. I also want to say a massive thank you to Moondog as well. I want to say a massive thank you to Alan Leslie. I want to say a massive thank you to Q7, also 7 as well. Mike Zaza, Giant, Lily White India, Faz Radfar, Rayman, 89 Spurs or 09 Spurs, and Davy Shire as well. Really appreciate the contributions, guys. Really helps keep up, the work and everything we need to make this possible. So really appreciate that, guys. And lastly, I want to say a massive thank you to Soren, busy boy today, but still made it, even though he had, a spanner in the works today, but still made it. So appreciate your time, Soren. I want to say a massive thank you to Billy T as well. And a massive thank you to Jack for keeping the channel going as best as he can while I've been taking care of my family. And Dad, if you're watching, come on, you fucking Spurs. Let's go. Be back here in a while.
Hopefully he's watching it with a big, bright smile. Come on, you Spurs.